The first use case you think about blockchain is payments, right? So that's the first thing you want to do is show that you can secure a payment mechanism just like Visa, MasterCard, but much more secure without middlemen, take away the fees, offers economies of scale. So the more people use it, the cheaper it gets. The way we view the future of value in the long term, 3 to 5 to 10 years, we view layer 1 blockchains will essentially become like the new republics. These will be the new mechanisms where all the value is going to proliferate to. In the future, there'll be the layer 1 blockchain, there will be the mining market, there'll be the dApps, and there'll be tokens. So the lower you get in the stack, the lower risk you have, but the lower rewards. The highest risk reward will be on the layer 1 blockchain, because that's where all the value will flow up. But it's highest value, highest risk. We view layer 1 blockchains, which is Bitcoin, Syscoin, Ethereum, as court systems. They need to be combative to the external forces that we don't control, even in the software world. In the real world, like inflation, hyperinflation, wars, these systems need to be secure from that. And this is why we view Bitcoin as the gold standard for security and decentralization. What else does the world need? What else does the world cherish when you have something like Bitcoin? How can we extend that to something else where we can take advantage to build real world utility? This is where Ethereum comes in. For me, Ethereum is a gold standard for flexibility or general computation. We're trying to stick to the gold standards we know the world's going to cherish and develop on, and we put those two concepts together. And this is what Syscoin is.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. In case you are not familiar, I am. Damn, I hit the wrong button. I hit the wrong button. Hold on. And I hit it again. Oh, I hate these. Hold on. Where's Unk's lower third?
Hotep Jesus.
There it is. What up, y'all? Hotep Jesus, we back. Hope everyone's doing well out there. As I, the sad part is, when YouTube banned you, now you gotta like try and get back into the swing of things, and you're just like all off. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to figure out. Where is my sponsors? Not that one. No. Wait. Where is it? Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Boom. Okay, we're good now. What's up, people? Hotep Jesus, we back. Shout out to my sponsor, Syscoin, the best of Bitcoin, the best of Ethereum. Go to hotepjesus.com. Hit the Syscoin logo. Fill out the form. You can start building on the world's best blockchain, in my personal opinion. Great company to work with. They're incentivized to work with you. That's Syscoin, SYS Coin. Shout out to my people listening to the audio version. The audio version, if you hit the link in the description box below, you can listen to the audio version of this podcast and all the rest of my sharp conversations. With that being said, we have none other than the most controversial, the most hated, the comedian, provocateur, Josh Denny in the house.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Life is good, man. Life is good. I could complain, but nobody would care. So why do it?
That's a good attitude to have about it.
Yeah, I'm a man, right? And when you're a man, nobody really gives a shit about you, right? People only care about babies and women, right? So being a man is just understand nobody gives a fuck about you, so you got to give a fuck about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think we have the opportunity to sort of change that a little bit. That's one of the things that I think is kind of interesting about this time we're in right now is, do we really have to continue to be like that, where everybody's like a samurai on their own and doing their own thing? Because, that in a weird way, that's like how all this sort of cancel culture and sort of that stuff prevails, isn't it? Is just this idea that we're all on our own. And then the funny thing is like our sort of cultural adversaries have a different point of view, right? They band together and work in large groups and do whatever they need to do to sort of take us out. And so I think I agree with you that it's like you can complain, nobody's going to give a shit. But in the same hand, I think we all have to get better at kind of coming together and collaborating to make sure that that we're winning when we fight back against some of this stuff.
I totally agree. We think about the powers that be. They're organized, right? We have to create organizations. That's why I am very thrilled to be a part of the Hotep Nation organization. And so I'm not exactly a samurai lone wolf or anything like that.
Yeah, you have a tribe?
Yeah, we got a tribe. Yeah, we got the Hoteps. The Hoteps are deep. They're strong. They're good people. And they show me a lot of love. But without the Hoteps, who knows where I'd be,
I was watching you and Uncle Hotep last week, and I love that you guys have brought back and repurposed the word shine. I I was like, yeah, I grew up here, and I grew up on the East Coast, and my dad's like old. I have an older dad. And so, he'll pull out the old school racial slurs that you haven't heard in a long, long time. And the fact that you guys not only have repurposed it and commodified it, it was like a touch of nostalgia for me. I was like, shit, I haven't heard people throw that around in 20, 30 years.
Are these the racial slurs you heard in your household, Shine?
Yeah, growing up. Yeah, well, it was funny because like you kind of needed a thesaurus all the time. And I grew up in like an Italian part outside of Philadelphia as a kid.
Yeah.
And so you heard shine a lot and you heard moulignon a lot, which is the Italian word for eggplant, which I never understood as a kid. I was like, I don't even get the correlation of that. Like, how the fuck did they come up with that?
Yeah.
And then I started watching porn as I got older, and I go, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I grew up in a household where my grandma, she drank beer and smoked cigarettes, and she was not particularly fond of white people. So I was surrounded by racial slurs towards white folks and people of other.
What are the good ones? Give me some of the good. Is there any good ones I might not have ever heard?
I mean, you guys got to go with the old classic cracker.
That's a good one.
That's the old classic.
Got a real snap to it.
Yeah, it comes off the tongue real well. What is it? What's the type of sound it makes? I forget what sound it makes, but it's a certain way that you pronounce these words with the hard consonants. I forget the term for it or whatever. But yeah, it's one of those terms, where just cracker. It just feels good saying it,
Mm-hmm.
Once upon a time you got canceled, right? Can you tell us the story? You were working at Crocs. Everything was going good. You made Crocs the number 2 shoe in the world or something like that. And then you moved into entertainment, and then you slipped up and said something.
Yeah. So I had worked at a lot of places in my 20s. So at the very beginning of my business career, when I was a kid, I worked my way up at Hollywood video stores. I don't know if you're old enough to remember video stores, but
Blockbuster.
Yeah, Hollywood was their number one competitor. It was like the number 2 chain.
Yeah.
And from age 18 until 21, I went from being like a key holder working in town during high school to being the youngest district manager in the company and the district manager rookie of the year when I was like 21. And then my bosses from there had been footwear guys at Kinney Shoes.
Wait. How did you pull that off?
I just outworked everybody, man. Like I didn't go to college. I just continuously outworked everybody, and I had good mentor. Like I had a guy kind of take me under his wing when I was 19. And, really kind of mentored me to becoming a manager and a good manager. And then by being a good manager and a high performing one, I got the opportunity to be a district manager. It was kind of wild to be like a 20-year-old DM and managing the managers that I used to work under. You know what I mean? And people that are twice my age. And the way I was always in leadership, not to get too far off, but the way that I was always successful, like my mentor, Rob, who's still like one of my best friends and like another dad to me. He told me that, getting promoted and being successful in business, you kind of have to have 3 things. Like you have to be the undeniable best performer. You have to have the unquestionable support of the people above you, and you have to have the unquestionable support of the people at your peer level, meaning like they have to want you to succeed. The people above you have to see you as the obvious choice, And then performance wise, it can't be up for dispute. And so I was like, oh, those are the three ways to move forward in business. I'll just do those three things. And the real key to it is, I learned very early on that if you want to be successful in anything, you have to be able to talk in terms of what's important to the people that you're working with. And you can't fake that. Like a lot of times in business and stuff, people believe that, well, I'll just tell people what they want to hear, and I'll just give them, I give them the easiest solutions to their problems. And at the end of the day, if you don't talk in terms of what's genuinely important to people, and you don't know, if you don't know, you're probably not working with the right people, and you're definitely not working with the right people if you don't care. And so, if you just do those things, it's a pretty simple path to success. If you surround yourself with people you care about and your visions are the same for yourselves or your business or your future, then it's pretty easy to succeed in whatever you're doing together. So that was kind of the roadmap I was given. And I moved up at Hollywood Video, and then we all went to Crocs after that company went public. And I did that from 2006 to 2012 and started doing stand-up in 2007, and then moved to LA in 2009, stayed with Crocs until 2012. And then they had done a lot of corporate restructuring there, and all my guys left that I started with. So then I went over to Sean John, and I worked there for about a year and a half.
What was your position at these places?
Yeah. So when I left Hollywood Video, I was a district manager. When I left Crocs, I was like a regional director. So I had the Southwest US, and this is all on like retail operations, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So like your store managers would have a district manager they would report to, then like a regional manager. Then I would report into a director of stores.
And covering the stores. Okay. So you're handling the stores, the retail locations.
So store stuff.
Okay.
And so basically like your day-to-day operations,
right.
Labor management, product ordering, human resources stuff. But I always had sort of a penchant for training and teaching and stuff inside of business. And I always gravitated towards that stuff. And with Crocs, but when we went there, we were like, there were 4 of us who had to do all of it. So I sort of took on more responsibility than the average. Like when I started at Crocs, I was a district manager, but I had half the country. I had like the Northeast United States, and I had all the stores in that territory. And then we were growing rapidly. So like I tell people, it was kind of like retail Fight Club. I would fly into a city. I'd have to hire a whole team or recruit a whole team of people to come work for this new company that nobody knew anything about. And then we would literally build a location, receive product, train everybody. And inside of a week or two, I would go from having no business to a running fully functional business with a team of brand new people. And then I would fly into another city and do it all over again. So it was like literally like Tyler Durden flying around the country, building these different sort of like splinter cells of Project Mayhem. But it was more like, just like young people who were adventurous and not afraid to join this like startup company. And if you remember Crocs in like 06, 07, when it started, everybody was like, this is a fucking fad. This thing's going to go away. So to really convince people that like you're joining something that you have a potential to grow and a future in, I had to be a good salesman to get good people. And so we built that, and I stayed there till 12 when it started to get really political. And, after that company had gone through so many CEOs, you start getting these people that come in with like the savior solutions. So you have like a CEO from Reebok who was kicked out, and then that guy comes in and goes, I'm going to save this company by doing everything that got me fired at the last company, right? And so that came in, and then the guy who was one of my bosses at Hollywood, who brought me to Crocs, ended up buying P. Diddy's Sean John company, retail company, away from him. And we were going to buy that and build it and expand it and grow it. And we had some issues with supply chain and issues dealing with Diddy in that endeavor. And then I got recruited by a check cashing company in 2013 to be a director of operations for them for the Southwest, for Southern California to start, and then potentially it would have led to me taking over Arizona, Nevada, that kind of area. And they kind of pitched it as like, we want to change, like check cashing has this horrible stigma, right? Like, we're viewed as like these predatory lenders and everything else, and we want to fix that. And so I was like, yeah, I'd like to be a part of fixing that. Like, I'd like to be a part of like changing this industry for the better. And I get in and I work there for about 90 days. And at the end of those 90 days, we're getting ready to like actually start after training and everything else. Because the financial, I'd never worked in anything financial before that, but there's so much compliance training that you have to go through. Like, it just into even like the amount of training you have to go through to be a Western Union person who can send money is fucking nuts, dude. That was like literally 2 weeks of training for me for something that I would have never done day to day.
Yeah.
But you in the financial compliance world, you have to go through every single step of that training to even manage people who do that stuff. And the check cashing community is literally like legal money laundering when you really think about it. So it's like they do a lot of like, you're dealing with people who cannot bank in the traditional ways. So by nature, there's a lot of fuckery in the business for sure.
Yes.
And so I get in there and I work. This is a long story, but I get in there and I work with these guys. And about 3 months in, I find out that they have a pretty damning illegal practice when it comes to something human resources related. And I run it up the flagpole and bring it up to people. And it also affects me directly. And I go, this is something that you guys are doing. I don't know if you realize it's illegal. It's a problem for the company. And we're either going to get sued or we're going to just hope that we get away doing the wrong thing for a long time. And they played it like when I met with the head of HR and the head of personnel and the CEO, and we talked through all of this. They were like very much like, oh no, we had no idea. They sort of played ignorant and dumb.
Okay.
And then a week later, I was sitting in my boss's office in Phoenix, and they called us in. They like called him on the phone. I sat in his office, and they fired me over the phone and said it was because of the inappropriate nature of my stand-up. But they had known about my stand-up from the time and this is 2013, so I hadn't really done any TV or anything stand-up wise. I was like an open micer.
Yeah.
And I had a couple clips on YouTube, and I had released a couple albums, but I had no heat on that side of the business. They all had known I was a comedian and thought it was great, and then they used it as an excuse to try to fire me when I tried to hold them accountable to breaking the law. So I got a lawyer and I sued them, and we settled that about 18 months later. And then, but in that time, I was like, I'm going to go drive Uber and figure out how to be a professional comedian. And that's what I did for the next 2 years.
So wait. Obviously, these people fired you because they were like, wait, he knows about this illegal thing we're doing.
Yes.
And we want to keep getting away with this. So
right.
we got to get
it was called whistleblower. Yeah, it's whistleblower retaliation. So, for anybody watching this at home, like a lot of times people will think, well, man, if my big company I work for is doing something illegal, what can I do about it? Well, they can fire you if they want to, but you are protected by the law. So you can get a lawyer and sue for whistleblower retaliation. And what was great is they tried to get that case thrown out 3 or 4 times in the course of 18 months. And the judge, and even an LA judge, kept saying, I think there's a case here. Like, I think it's pretty fucking obvious that what you were doing was egregious. He's part of the affected class of that. And, you're going to have a real hard time playing dumb that you didn't know he was a comedian when he's got depositional testimony that literally talks about him sitting down with the CEO and talking about comedy a month before you guys fired him.
Yeah.
And there not being any issue or anything about that. And like they tried to lie in deposition and say that they had no idea I was a comedian and that the dinner that I described in my deposition never took place. And I remember there's one moment where my lawyer crossed their main guy and they go, so did you guys have a conversation about the Book of Mormon? And he was like, no. And he goes, oh, so my client would have no idea that your wife is Mormon, right? And the guy's like, no, there's no way he would know that. And he goes, is your wife Mormon? And he goes, yes. And he goes, and did you guys have a conversation about the fact that your brother-in-law is a homosexual? And he's like, no. He goes, is your brother-in-law homosexual? And he's like, yes. And he goes, so how would my client know that? Like, they killed this guy in deposition, so much to the point where the judge was like, listen, I know this guy does edgy comedy and a jury might feel a certain way about that, but like, you guys are fucking dead to rights in this case. There is a case here, and you've got some severe perjury, obvious perjury happening in the deposition. So unless your client has a completely different testimony on the stand, you guys are going to get fucking destroyed. And it really boiled down to my lawyer. I wanted this to go to trial because I was like, at trial, we could potentially win millions, but we could also lose everything and not win anything. And so we got the settlement to a figure that we thought was reasonable. But it's one of those things of like, you know, who does the jury hate more? The foul-mouthed comedian who says offensive things, or the predatory lending company that's breaking the law and then lying in their depositions about not only what they were doing, but whether or not they had any idea of who I was and what my background was and the fact that I was a comedian. So I kind of took that as like a sign. I'd never been fired from a job in my life up until that point. So I kind of took that as a sign of like, maybe I'm supposed to pivot and do stand up full time. And it was about 18 months after that, I got the Food Network show.
Oh, wow. So you're on Food Network.
Yeah, I had a show there for 3 seasons called Ginormous Food.
Okay.
Did that job for about 2 years. And then, I bring up the corporate cancellation happened before anything else. And then, you know, fast forward the time at Food Network, the show did pretty well, had solid ratings, was one of their better premiered shows. I was getting paid terrible money for the amount of money the show was generating in ad revenue. And when the advertiser guys came to set one day and told me what the show was making, I immediately called my agent and was like, we're getting fucked. Like, we got to call and do something about this, because I was like, we cannot go into season 4 making this money knowing how much it's making for the network. It's embarrassing.
So then what happened?
So we ended up having like this really big conference call, and they were like, well, we love the show. We love you. What we don't love is how political you are on social media. Because keep in mind, we're filming this show in fall of 2016. So this is literally Trump's presidential election. And I'm on Twitter every day like, this fucking lady is going to get blasted in the election. She has no idea. She thinks she has this in the bag. She's going to get creamed because America fucking hates this woman.
Yeah.
And they're just like, it's all women at Food Network and Scripps, which is the parent company of Food Network. And that's now owned by Discovery.
Okay.
But, so anyway, I remember season 2, we have this big conference call, and they're talking about my stand-up, and they're talking about everything else, and they're just like, hey, your stand-up is not necessarily the same as the branding of the show. The show's very family friendly. Your stand-up really isn't. And the political stuff is like a little scary for us because it can be divisive. So we want you to tone down both of those things. And I'm like on this call where there's like 20 people talking about me and what I do and my future. And I just interrupt and I go, listen, you guys can pay me $2 million a year for the next 10 years and I'll do whatever the fuck you want. Like, I'll stop doing stand-up. I won't even be on social media. I'll fucking judge Halloween Bake Off or whatever bullshit shows you have. I'll do it for the next 10 years. But if you want me to sell out, you at least got to be willing to cut the fucking check.
Exactly.
So I was like, it was like a mic drop moment on this conference call, and it was total silence. And I just said, feel free to counter. You know what I mean? Like, by all means, if that number's too high, shoot me something back. But what I'm not going to do is compromise who I am out of some sort of fear that you're going to take shit away from me, because that's just not how I live. And I don't operate that way. Like, if you want me to sell out, cut a check and we'll go from there. But that was what was like a revealing moment about Hollywood, is because so often these people, like, everyone looks at people. I'll even use Andrew Schultz as an example. So Schultz went hard at Kanye after Kanye's whole thing last week. And then the next day, like uncoincidentally, it's announced he has this overall deal at CAA. So it's literally like, you went and touted the narrative and shit on Kanye, and now they're welcoming you in with open arms, and we're supposed to believe those two things aren't connected. You know what I mean? And so,
wow. Oh, wow.
So he does this whole thing, and it's like, it's not even that they're selling out for money. It's that they're so afraid to have to go back to a normal life that they'll do it for free, that they will compromise themselves. They will, they'll shuck and jive, and they'll do whatever the fuck they tell them to do, because they're so terrified of what happens if I have to go back to being a regular person, as if that's the worst thing in the world for these people. And so, like, when people look at like celebrities and stuff and they go, oh, you know, they're just protecting the bag or whatever. It's sometimes there's no bag. Sometimes there's not even a fucking bag. It's just the fear that they'll be ostracized and relegated back to being an everyday person. And that's terrifying to them. I mean, look at how much they're freaking out about their blue checks on Twitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just like, oh, now everyone can get a blue check for $8 a month. This is an atrocity. And it's like, who gives a shit? You just want to believe that you're more special than other people. That's what it's really about.
You damn right I do. That's exactly what it comes down to.
Yeah, exactly.
These peasants do not deserve, you know, how long I waited to get that blue check.
Hey, me too, man. I had over 100,000 followers for a long time, and but you know what's so funny is, you know how I got my blue check? My agent made a phone call, and that was it.
See,
like I submitted like 10 times to try to get a verified profile on Twitter. And when my TV show was happening and I was signed at UTA, he was literally like, I'll send the emails over. And at noon that day, like an hour later, I was verified on every social media except Instagram.
Yeah, you got to have somebody on the inside. I need somebody on the inside of Instagram. If you know somebody, let me know, man.
Hey, I don't. I am pretty much dead on Instagram, because maybe if I start showing my tits more, I'll be able to grow my numbers. That seems to be the model.
I was very much for a long time, I was against the whole verification thing. And then my homegirl, Wendy O, she's like, Hotep, you need to get verified. I'm like, nah, we don't do verified. I'm from the streets. I'm certified by the people.
Right.
And she was like, oh, yeah? Watch this. And she pulls up like these fake accounts of me and like the shit they were pushing. And I was just like, okay, I need to get verified, because if people get scammed like under my name, that's not cool, right? But I think the good part about everybody getting verified now is it should reduce the junk accounts, right?
Well, that's what Elon said. He goes, it's a big part of getting rid of the garbage, the spam and the scams and everything else.
Yeah. You know, this is a verified person, whatever. They've been doxxed. We got their ID, and, you know, we know that's that person.
I would like it a lot more if it meant that they had to go by their legal name on Twitter as well as part of the verification, in the sense of like, I mean, I guess it's a little different if you have like a brand that you go by and you're a public figure. But like, I just like the idea that a person who calls everybody faggot on the internet has to actually put their face up.
Yes.
And actually be like, this is who I am.
Yes.
Because I think you'd cut a lot of that shit out overnight.
Yeah, I absolutely loathe that. You know,
the protection of anonymity.
Yeah. You know, in some cases, like if you want to provide your opinion on certain things in a respectful manner and you want to be anonymous, I'll support you. But for the guys that just like want to shit post and talk shit about you behind an anonymous screen, it's like, nah, bro, say that shit with your face, man, because you're talking to me and you know who I am.
Well, that's how cancel culture goes away. The reason cancel culture exists is because there are certain people that are protected from it in society. Like they're allowed to post their political opinions or things like that with fear of repercussion. If everybody had to face the fear of repercussion for talking about what they think, there wouldn't be consequences for anybody, because nobody would want to live in that world if that were real. The fact that we live in two societies where some of us are at risk of it and some of us aren't is why it exists in the first place. Like persecution only happens when there's a ruling class who can't be persecuted, right? If everyone equally is vulnerable, then there is no persecution.
Profound.
Yeah. So
I've never.
you know, Food Network thing happens. They decide not to renew my contract because now I get labeled as being difficult. I'm Monique. Like, you know, they're just like, what do you want to not be paid bullshit money while we're making hundreds of millions of dollars? What are you, Monique?
We're giving you the opportunity of putting you on TV.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can you have any idea about the exposure you're getting? You'll starve to death getting paid in exposure in Hollywood. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And so they don't pick the show up, and I start pitching other shows around town. And then 2018, the Sutherland Springs shooting happens. Do you remember that one?
Nope.
So it was a shooting in Texas, and it was a good guy with an AR-15 who stopped the mass shooting. And so because it was a good guy with a gun who stopped a bad guy with a gun, they couldn't really talk about gun control as the narrative. So the narrative on social media that day switched very briefly to, we don't have a gun problem in this country. We have a straight white male problem in this country. And so I went on Twitter, being the mouthpiece that I like to be sometimes, and just said, wow, y'all are trying to make straight white male the new N-word. And the internet lost their fucking mind at that comment. And so it blew up.
Did you type N-word? Did you type the hard ER? Did you type the A?
No. I said N-word, right? But what's interesting is everyone then went back and was like, but you've used the word in jokes before, so that makes you racist. And it's like, okay, you guys are out of your mind.
Oh, the retro cancel.
Yeah, so they went back and were like, well, anybody who thinks that white people could be oppressed, which, by the way, isn't what I said. It was really more about the attempt, right? The fact that people were trying to then now, basically, for me, it was funny that they were broad brushing societal problems by race, because I grew up around a lot of white people that did that, who were just like, you know, Philadelphia would be a great city if it weren't for all the blacks and the Vietnamese. And it's like, okay, well, you can't really. What about these rich blacks over here that have more money than us? I'm not talking about them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
It's just like, you can't broad brush these things. And to say it about white people is no more productive than to be like, this race of people is ruining America. It's like, well, that's very reductive, and it's not specific, and it's not based in truth.
That's funny because I've said that before. I'm like, yo, white men is the new niggas. White conservatives are the new niggas. I've said it before.
I do a joke about it in my act now, where it's like, I talk about when I was canceled, and I go, it wasn't even that I thought that was the case. I was just being hopeful, because I look forward to a day when white women start fucking us to get back at their fathers. Like, I love the idea of a white girl giving me a talking to, like, listen, I know you're about to meet my family, but they're very progressive, and it's going to kill them to know that I'm with a white man. So, you know, if you could just like keep your head down and not really speak unless spoken to, you know, all the things that white girls used to say to their black boyfriends when they would bring them home. You know, my grandmother has, 30 degrees in human rights. And so it would break her heart if she knew I was with the white devil.
Lord have mercy. Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is where we are.
Yeah, exactly. So that happens. I get cut by UTA, my agency. The new show I was pitching at Magical Elves got thrown out. Everything was kind of put to death in the entertainment world, and I went back to driving Uber and just figuring out my next steps. Then a year later, one of my guys, another guy named Bob, who brought me from Hollywood to Crocs to Sean John, he's now the head of North American retail for what's now Top Golf, used to be Callaway Golf, and he started with Travis Matthew, which is the golf apparel company. And he was about to take a promotion, so he hired me to be his replacement as the director of retail for Travis Matthew. And then I basically would have overseen the entire company in terms of stores, so product, merchandising, marketing, real estate, you name it. And they were going through this big retail expansion. And so I meet the president of the company and the CEO and like do this huge interview, hit it off. They like me a lot. Day 2, I get called into the HR office, and a girl who wasn't even in my department, who would have never worked for me or with me, complained to HR because she remembered what I was canceled for the year before on the internet, the straight white male comment. So literally, And then they pulled up, just like the people who canceled me, they pulled up every joke I ever told on Twitter. And they were like, did you say all this? And I go, yeah, as a professional comedian, like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah.
And they fired me day 2 because of cancellation on the internet from a year before. It had nothing to do with any workplace conduct whatsoever. And it was like it was so interesting that the head of HR, who's a woman, knew that the president and the CEO would tell her to go fuck herself if she brought this to them. So she took it to the general counsel at Callaway, who's also a woman, and went to the legal board, and the legal board made the decision and forced it down the throats of the CEO and president of the company. So they had no say in how their company was run. And so
Yo, white women is evil, man.
Dude, did you say it or did you say it? I mean, it's so fucking true. And at the end of the day, through the legal, because I fucking sued them too. We didn't win, but I through legal depositions, it became evident that female director of HR was just mad that she didn't make the decision to hire me. Like, it really boiled down to the fact that she was pissed off that 3 men did her job for her and picked a person without her okay and blessing.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. White women give me nightmares in corporate America.
Oh, it's they by the way, I hope men realize what they did when they brought them into the workforce, because it was the downfall of it's the downfall of the American workplace, because they just can't, like, it's like, imagine trying to run your company like Mad Men today. You know what I mean? And it's like, you see all these like dramatizations of that, where it's like a woman who has these great, wonderful ideas and she can save the company, and it's just old white guys going with cigars like, get the fuck out of here, you stupid broad, right? Yeah. And that's not reality, because in reality, most women don't come to the table with any fucking ideas in the workplace. They just whine and bitch about the workplace to the point where they get every fucking genius fired from the workplace. And then it turns into this goddamn water cooler, The View, and nothing gets done, and they just, I'm vice president of human design. What I do is I fucking sit in a room and we talk about people, and it's just, and nothing gets done. And that's what the business world is, because we let women into it. And that's not to say that there aren't really, really smart, really like valuable women in the business world, but for every one of those, there are 2,000 stupid bitches with HR degrees and no fucking vision. Yeah. So who true. Ruin companies.
So fucking true, bro.
And they do that, and that is interesting to them because they're so unsuccessful in their social life that they're like, well, if no one will love me, I guess I'll fucking ruin everyone's life at the office today.
Exactly.
And it's funny, they crucified my buddy Gavin McInnes for that years ago when he was on, I think he was on Red Eye or something with a woman, and she was like freaking out. He goes, I bet you'd be happier home with kids. Like, look how miserable you are. You don't want to work. Like, you hate this. What are you doing? You don't have to be a news lady.
Right. That's the thing. I think women want the choice to work, and if they don't have the choice to work, then they're miserable. And you're bringing back so many nightmares, man. When I was working on that project, I was working for a startup, the whole 50 Cent thing. I was working for a startup, and the startup was connected to 50. When you mentioned how like women get together and it turns into The View, that's literally what happened to me. Like, it turned into The View, no work got done, and then they like conspired against me. And I was just like, right. I remember one time I brought this chick in, like bad as hell, sexy ass chick. And I brought her in just to fucking do like my payroll for my workers. So I went to the other side of the office where nobody is, just so I can kind of like, be out of other people's way, talk to her, train her. The 2 girls came over to where we were and started working where we were just to spy on us. Mm-hmm. Oh, I hated that. Oh my God. Anyway, all right. Okay, so then that happens, that dissolves. So where does that leave us now in the story?
Yeah, so the cancellation happens, and then I sort of rebound. I just continue focusing on stand up or whatever, and start meeting more and more canceled people, like Gavin McInnes and Anthony Cumia, and start doing stuff with them. And then up till this year, we started doing stand up tours. Obviously, the pandemic years were kind of like 2.5 down years of essentially doing nothing, right? Like, you know, I took this is a fun story. I took some of my pandemic unemployment assistance from being a private contractor in LA and started playing online poker and started making money that way.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I did for a year and a half. And then started, you know, when things started opening up, started doing touring again and doing it with Gavin and Anthony. And then that kind of brings us like current day. So, you know, for the last 6 months or whatever, we've been doing this tour, and, you know, it's been going well and having good shows and everything else. And then, you know, what was interesting was, I mean, the last 2 weeks have been like this sort of crazy out of body religious experience for me. Like, I would never describe myself as a super religious person before 2 weeks ago. And we were doing shows in Chicago, and we had problems with Antifa getting our venues canceled. So we announced the first venue early, which we normally don't do. And they started blowing up the venue and being like, this is a Proud Boys event because Gavin McInnes is going to be there. And, you know, so this is going to turn into a white supremacy thing. And are you really going to have white supremacists and a Nazi rally at your at your club? So they got our first venue canceled on Sunday. I was able to get a second venue lined up the next day. And then they canceled on us 2 hours before the show. Like, our producers were literally there doing sound tech check, and they were like, we got to cancel this show. We're getting too much heat. And when they get this heat, it's like, what are you getting? 30 calls from dorks on the internet who believe they're part of Antifa and they're freedom fighters.
Right.
So the guy pulls the plug on the show, and we're like, all right, we'll just email everybody and tell them to meet us at this bar. And at the very least, we'll hang with all the fans and maybe we can put something together. So we go to this bar in McHenry, Illinois. And one of the fans is talking to Ryan, our producer, who's Gavin's producer on his show. And he goes, man, I was just drinking at the local VFW, and they got like a 200-person bingo hall in the back room that's like nobody's using tonight. And I go, shit. So Ryan's like, I'm going to run over there and see if they'll let us do the show there. So he runs over there, gets me on the phone on speaker, and we negotiate a price. And then we just email everybody through Eventbrite and say, hey, we're going to be at the VFW down the street. Come down here. Show's going to be pushed back an hour, and we're still going to do it. So we do the show. We pull it off. I think almost everyone that bought tickets made it. I think we had like 2 people not make it that we knew about. But so we pull this out, and I remember the next day, Ryan and I drove back to the airport. It's about an hour drive from where we were to O'Hare. And I was like, dude, when we pull shit off like that last night, it starts to feel like God is on our side. You know what I mean? Like, it becomes like a religious crusade. And then like a week later, I started watching everything that was happening with Kanye, and I was just like, the parallels in our lives. Like when I had my first cancellation, I went on Van Lathan's podcast like 2 weeks after Kanye was there with Candace with the slavery as a choice thing. And I went on there, and of course we got into a conversation about the N-word in art, and I used the word because he told me he was fine with it before the show. And then when we did the show, he played like it was the most offensive thing that he's ever experienced in his life. And
he tricked you.
So and of course my girlfriend afterwards, she goes, you should have known better. And I go, you're right. I should have known that it's still in the TMZ offices, and they're going to so they soundbite it and clip it and make it look like I'm calling him the N-word or something. And it's like, no, we're having a conversation about like when it's used in songs versus used in jokes. And I'm like, if I'm telling a story about a racist interaction where somebody calls my girlfriend that slur, right? I'm going to use the fucking language that was used because 1, it's what really happened. It's the truth. And 2, I've done this shit enough to know what works and what doesn't work. And if you don't use the word, it's not offensive enough for the audience to understand what's funny about it.
Right.
So I was trying to explain that to him, and he started to clutch his pearls about the fact that I was even using the word in that context. And then of course they chopped that up and made it look crazy. But this was like 2 weeks after the Kanye thing. And so I've been a fan of his, and I'm not like a diehard, but I've been a fan of his since I was like 19 when College Dropout came out. And I liked his music because I was like, this is the first rapper who's sort of like indicting black culture in the sense of like, why do we care about sneakers and cars and not shit that's important, that matters, right? Like God and family. And so that's been a message from day one from him. And I just thought it was very interesting and different. And I've always dug him from that perspective. And I start to look at all the shit that's happening to him and I go, I know what that's like. I've been there. I've been canceled by that. I've had people say that about me. I've had people say that about me. And this is coming off the tails of these shows being canceled. And I'm like, I wonder if like, and then, when the Adidas deal got squashed, I was like, okay, so now he's got this apparel company, this footwear company that basically needs to be rebooted from the ground up. And I was thinking like our lives are so similar in a lot of ways, not similar in the revenue ways at all. I'm probably the poorest person he knows. But my point is, I was like, I just have this weird compulsion that maybe I'm supposed to put this out and maybe we're supposed to meet and work on something together. And I don't know what that is. So I do that thread that you saw on Twitter that I showed you. And I think nothing of it. I think like I put stuff like this on Twitter all the time and nothing ever happens with it. Like I probably tweeted at Elon Musk a million times, never answered one of my questions, you know?
Yeah.
And oddly enough, so I put it out, a couple days goes by, and then I get a direct message from Candace that says, give me your phone number. And I go, okay. And then the next morning, Thursday morning, I get a message back from her and she's like, you're going to get a phone call today. And I'm like, all right. And I assume it's going to be one of his people or whatever, or something like that. And at 4:30 on Thursday, I get a call from Ye himself directly to just talk. So we just talk about the problems of his business and his company, what he's dealing with. But mostly we talked about, you know, the experience of being canceled and what that feels like and everything else and the persecutorial aspects of it. And obviously like his is way different. Like I've said this on other shows. It's like, this is the most public crucifixion of a person since Christ himself. I mean, this is literally like that 2.0 in terms of, you know, just like, we're going to make a fucking example of this guy that you don't ever say shit we tell you you're not allowed to say. And it's just a very, very crazy, it's just a very crazy thing to watch unfold. And so, you know, we just kind of talked and joked for a little bit. And then, you know, I don't want to go into any specifics, but then we just sort of started talking about what, you know, all right, so where does everybody go in culture in this moment right now with the opportunities that we're all presented with, okay, now this is our reality going forward. What do we do? And so, you know, it's been without going into a ton of detail, it's been a very interesting 2 weeks. And going back to what I said a minute ago, it's like I went from this process of being like, yeah, I think I'm mildly religious to like, now I'm like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Signs, but have you ever seen it with Mel Gibson?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah, I would give it a second watch, but it's because it's like, it's an alien movie, but it's really a movie about religion and God and faith. And I tell people, like, after what's happened in my life in the last 2 weeks, I'm like that end scene in Signs when he's putting the fucking collar back on, like all faith is restored. And I just have this, I'm overwhelmed with this surreal feeling that like every interaction we have in our lives, positive, negative, unpleasant, uncomfortable, whatever, is all part of a bigger plan. It is all part of what our purpose is in life and on this planet. And in this existence, you know, some people, they're like, in this reality, in this thread of the multiverse, whatever you want to call it, like we are all on a path, and that there are no coincidences with the things that occur to us in our lives. And so it was like this really profound feeling of like, hey man, everything that you've ever endured that's been horrible or shitty in your life has been on purpose and to prepare you for something bigger that you are supposed to do. And I was like, and then when I started to even feel a taste of that, I started looking at him and going, holy shit, dude, imagine all the adversity you overcome in your life to become someone like Kanye and all the great things you achieve. Could you even imagine the idea that you are meant for some sort of greatness like that, and then you touch it? You actually touch it, and then in his case, you touch it over and over and over again. And it's like, how could you deal with the reality that not only are you that, is that true, that everything in your life has been on this purpose or for a purpose, but that it's at the scale that it is for him in terms of the number of people he reaches and touches and influences on a daily basis. And so what I look at that and go is like, my God, for somebody who's been tasked with that spiritual responsibility for humanity, I think he's handling it very fucking well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like, imagine sort of having the weight, and I don't say this to be hyperbolic, but imagine having the weight that you are essentially this generation's Messiah in some capacity, culturally, spiritually, artistically, whatever. And you grow up with the doubt in yourself about that all day long. And then it continues to be shown to you that, yes, you are this person. Yes, you have this purpose over and over and over again. Most people wouldn't be able to wake up and be productive with that weight of that on their shoulders. And so, you know, it's amazing to me that like you're watching somebody who has been gifted by something greater than ourselves with the audience to be a messenger for whatever he's empowered or told to do on such a grand scale. I think he's managing it very, very well, you know, and has managed it very, very well. And it's so amazing to see, you know, like we were talking before the show started, like I tweeted a picture with somebody that works with him that we've been hanging out the last couple of days and working, putting our heads together on some stuff. And just by the post of that picture going out, people are like, what the fuck is Denny doing working with or hanging out with these people who are affiliated? Like they're starting to put things together and they're fucking furious. And it's like the thing people are most afraid of is that those of us who find ourselves on different levels of this spiritual crusade of, I believe, the purpose is to essentially restore humanity back to what it was supposed to be or where we were, and to try to get us away from this fucking I hate using words like satanic or evil or whatever, but this path of like just the destruction of Western civilization. And I feel like we all have some role to play. Even you have a role to play in this culture war of facilitating things back to where they're supposed to be. And it's very hard to fight the doubt of that, of like, man, is that really, am I that important? Like, I don't feel important. I feel like a jerk off half the time. Like, you know, when I wake up and I have fucking indigestion and I can't stop farting, it's hard to feel like your life is meant for anything important when you're in those low moments, when you're by yourself and nobody cares about what you're doing and nothing that you're doing feels important or meaningful. It's hard to answer the call. And I think so many people like throw their opportunities or their potential away because they're too afraid to answer the call. And I think a lot of this haterish cancel culture shit is from a whole fucking generation of people who've never had the courage to answer the call for anything in their life. Anytime God or the universe or whatever they believe it is knocks on the door and says, here's where you're supposed to go, and they're too much of a fucking coward to follow it, those people hate people that are on any kind of spiritual journey, any kind of journey of self-realization, or somebody who's even willing to chase their own human potential. That's where that hater bullshit culture comes from people who believe you're only meaningless in this world if you fucking believe you are. And those people, unfortunately, believe they have nothing to offer the world, and they hate anyone who believes otherwise about themselves.
Bars.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's just, so at this point, it's like I'm literally just going where I feel like I'm called and compelled to go, and just trying to offer whatever I can to help, you know, whether it be business insight or just friendship, of just like, hey man, this is somebody who's never going to judge you, who's never going to tell you you have to apologize for what you think or what your ideas are or any of that shit. And by the way, I made him laugh on the phone the other day really hard, because I was like, I don't think people realize when you're fucking with them. And I think I'm sometimes one of the only people that knows when you're fucking with people. And he's like, well, you know, everybody gets offended so quickly. And I go, I promise you, I will never be offended at anything you fucking say, because I have the most morbid sense of humor of anyone you'll ever meet in your life. So, but yeah, it's just like,
he definitely fucks with people. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's moments, if you watch that Lex Friedman interview, there are moments in there where Lex has no idea that the shit that he is saying is not even necessarily shit that he thinks. He's trying to get a reaction. He's trying to like, and I understand it, because it's like, he's trying to knock Lex off the horse of his agenda, which in that interview is, I'm going to be the one to get him, to get through to him. I'm going to be the one that gets him to apologize. Piers Morgan did it. Lex Friedman did it. And it's just like, ew, dude, what a disgusting power to put upon yourself to believe. Like, how about you fucking believe that you're just, the opportunity is for you to make a human connection with somebody who has this vibration at this other level, right? And to think, it was weird to me to watch that, because it's literally like, it was like, imagine like thousands of years ago, somebody sitting down with Jesus and being like, I'm going to be the one that gets him to admit that he's not the son of God. And it's just so fucking disrespectful for people to sort of like assume that role for themselves. It's just strange to me that like people's agendas prevent them from just having a real authentic human connection with people. Like, why don't you just sit down and not have an agenda and see where the conversation takes you, and share ideas and share your loves and your passions and the things that you're excited about, and find that common ground with someone organically, you know? And it's like, people can, even somebody like Lex, who presents himself as this, I'm like very down the middle, I'm like a straight shooter, I'm like and you still can't get out of the, I have a moral responsibility with my platform to like make him apologize for what he said about Jewish people. And I love that he didn't back down on that and said, yeah, but like, for me to pretend that that's not part of it would be a lie though. You know what I mean? He's like, that's a lie. Like, you can tell me that it's not everybody, and you can tell me that that's not the reason, but you can't tell me that it's just not a factor or it's irrelevant to the discussion. And what I think is so funny is like, all these people are like, yeah, but that's not all Jewish people, but that's not all Jew. You can't just say that, because everyone else is going to think you mean all Jews. And it's like, well, nobody expects him to have that sort of hesitation when he's indicting the black community, when he's going in on his own community and saying, listen, these are black problems in black neighborhoods, in black communities with black people, and we have to come up with black solutions for these problems. Everyone's going, yeah, that sounds great. Right. But if you look outside your own culture and go, but this other community seems to have some fucked up shit going on too, that is now affecting other communities. Everyone goes, well, who the fuck do you think you are saying that? You know what I mean? Like, how dare you? Yeah. So it's so interesting to me, you know, like I've slept probably like 3 hours a night for the last 2 weeks of just, and you're just having this sort of like existential interaction with everything around you. It's like, even like, you know, it's like, why do I know this person? Like, what am I supposed to be in their life? And what am I supposed to offer them? What am I supposed to give of myself to that person? And it's just like, in a weird way, it's like my antenna now is like totally open to understand that like every human interaction I have with people, it could even be like, why is my mailman at the door when I'm leaving today? Like, what could come of this interaction, and what is my responsibility to put some good energy into that? And what does it cost me to put good energy into that? Nothing. And so it's like this really, and then there's this cynical comedian in me who's like, this all sounds very gay. But I mean, like, but it is sort of like, you do start to go through your life and go like, man, I've really like overlooked so many opportunities to just like even cheer somebody up and when they're having a bad day. and we blow by so many of those opportunities to have a good interaction with each other. And then we wonder why we live in a society where we can't have civil discourse. Well, that is the product of everybody looking past each other when they interact on a daily basis, right? You meet somebody in a grocery store, and instead of just, hey, how are you? How's your day? You just fucking look right past them and walk by. And we've done that for 60 years. And this is the society we've created, where we can't have civil conversations because we don't have civil interactions.
The culture. Oh my God, you on fire. It's a lot there. It's a lot there. You're talking about culture. You're talking about these, I would call them omens, right? You start seeing, I can't remember what movie it is, but it sort of reminds me, if I were to guess, it sort of reminds me of Back to the Future. Back to the Future is like one of my favorite movies of all time, especially part 2. And it's just like,
such a good one.
Yeah. Like this thing, if you show up here and talk to the wrong person, like you're dead now. Like you don't exist in the future, right?
Yeah, that's I never thought of that movie in those terms.
Yeah. So it's just like, what interaction did you have that sort of changed the future that you might not even have any idea, because, everything's a chain reaction. You were nice to this person. So because of that, they didn't crash their car, and instead this happened, and then that happened. And, next thing you know, you've affected Russia, right? Because of this chain reaction.
Yeah, it's the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah, yeah. I look at life like that. That's definitely how I look at life. And I try to manage my time increments in that. It's harder than, easier said than done. But
yeah, I agree. And none of us, I don't think any of us would ever say we're perfect at it. And I think where it really gets scary is when people believe that they can influence it in a way that sort of tilts the table in their favor. I think, and that's one of the reasons I've always rejected this idea when you hear people talk about like the universe and manifesting the positive. It's like, well, everyone that talks like that is always just trying to tilt things in their favor. So when they do nice things, it's because they expect it to benefit them. Or when they do nice things, they expect it to sort of come back to them. And you can't do it that way. Like that's not how it works. You have to understand that for it to work the way it's intended, you're probably going to lose more than you're going to win.
Yes.
Like, because it's not about you. It's about giving something of yourself. And this is what's so interesting is like going through this process and not knowing the details of where it will go or what will happen. I look back at myself and go, maybe this isn't even about me. Maybe this isn't nothing to do with maybe I'm supposed to be like, maybe I'm a necessary component to somebody else's journey right now who needs a little bit of fuel or a little bit of gas or a little bit of acceptance or just a fucking hug to know that like you're not wrong and you're not a bad person and everyone doesn't hate you.
Yeah.
And if that's the limit of what I can do and be, then I have to be happy with that. And that does bring me joy to be like, holy shit, the idea that like just being supportive can do good is profound, and letting that be enough. Like if nothing ever happens, that doesn't matter to me because it is so much bigger than that. And it's like, it's humbling to believe that you could be called into action just for the purpose of making somebody else feel better. And comedians all the time fucking in a masturbatory way go like, it's for me, I do it because it's about making people feel good or whatever. I have never pretended that that's the vibration I'm on as a comedian. Like, we'll talk about, it's about bringing joy to people or whatever. And I've probably even said douchey shit in the past of like, I'm in the joy business and you're in the misery business. But in a way, it's sort of like, it's not even about that. It's like the idea that my ideas or my thoughts could resonate any emotion in people excites me, which is why I'm equally thrilled to outrage people as I am to please them. Because the idea that I can inspire feeling from people, good or bad, is interesting to me. It's fun. It's to me that is existence. Like the idea that you would live an existence where you never inspire any kind of emotion from people or never garnish any reaction from people, might as well not be here.
So true. So true. I write about that in my book, Dominate Twitter. Absolutely. I'm gonna get to the super chats in a moment. I want to ask you about The name of this podcast is Rescuing Yeezy. Josh Denny Rescuing Yeezy.
Yeah, that's insane. I am not anybody's fucking savior at all. So,
so when I think about the events that have transpired with Adidas, you know, Kanye goes from being allegedly the richest black man ever to, well, just another black guy with millions in a bank account, right?
Slight demotion.
Yeah. I'm thinking to myself, as far as the fashion is concerned, I'm thinking he's probably set back for at least a decade. Mostly because, like, can he here's the problem. Without those big names, I believe that he cannot create the supply to meet his demand. Is that true?
No.
Okay.
No, it can be done. The beautiful thing, so yeah, so we can get into the weeds on this part because this is just talking business. And this, you know, it's funny. There are a lot of people who question if there's any actual truth to my background in business, and this will squash some of that because it's based in reality. So what's really beautiful, what is a real problem in retail is supply chain management, right? And that's why even great companies like Adidas, Nike, Reebok, their shit still lands in outlet stores at discounted rates because they don't have a science down to the buy, right? And so when it comes to supply chain management, they're almost always speculating. And like let's say a new sneaker comes out and they go, well, what is this like? And what can we assume it will perform like in the past? So a good thing would be like Adidas Ultra Boost. They know that that's one of their best running shoes. They know how many years it's been successful. They know what colorways work. They know what sizes they sell more of. So it becomes this sort of cycle. But what's interesting about that is, in a way, the data sort of dictates the behavior. And then if you have bad data, you have bad behavior. So I'll give you an example. When I was at Crocs, when I took over the Southwest US at LA was the worst market in Crocs. And I came out and it was evident that it was because we had bad people who didn't buy into, they were basically all people that were showing up for a paycheck. They didn't care about being part of a team. They didn't identify with the company. They had no career goals or aspirations. So it was like a toxic environment. So I fixed all that. I brought in people that were excited at career growth and excited to be a part of fixing something. And they liked being part of my underdog team. We fixed all that and we still struggled. And one of the reasons was because they were buying Southern California the same way they were buying Minnesota. Well, Minnesota and Iowa and these places are a lot of Midwestern corn-fed white people, and their foot sizes are 7 to 10 for women. And in Southern California, the Crocs consumer was almost entirely Asian. And so the sizes of those women's feet are 4 to 7. Now, if you never have the product to meet the demand, then you're never going to have the data that tells you to buy that way. So I kind of had to find another way to prove to the people in my company that I wasn't full of shit, that was based in fact. So I gathered this data collection software patch in our system where we could log missed sales. And my people just started logging every time we missed a sale on a size we didn't have in stock. So then I was able to walk into meetings with reports that said, I missed 1,000 units in Santa Monica this week because there was something in town that was like very Asian, right? Like, Korean Film Festival was an example. And I go, we missed 1,000 sales because we didn't have enough size 4s. And so I cannot succeed until I get this product. And I worked with the head of supply chain. I worked with the head of manufacturing, worked with the global marketing manager. And I finally convinced them to basically let me go against the code and just manually buy our product. And when we did that, my market outperformed every other market in the company for that year. And so when you ask that question about, can he ever meet the demand? No, but that's not a bad thing, right? And I think the model shifts. So like, the thing I think is interesting about that is he's kind of like, the product line is kind of more like it's branded and released more like tech than textiles. Like these companies like Adidas and Nike or whatever, they don't do drops. They don't do collections. High fashion, and particularly the way that Ye and Yeezy has changed high fashion, is in more of like a streetwear drop way. So they go, listen, we're only going to make 80,000 of these. And so if you don't fucking get them, you don't get them. And so we call that scarcity. When you build a model where you say, we're only going to build so much, we're going to do this. And what's interesting, so you go, can he rebound? If it were my company, and this is all I can say, if it were my company, I would change I would change the process from, this is our collection, you guys tell us you want to buy it, and we'll go we'll make it, and then we'll try to sell it all. That's sort of the old retail model, is like, we like this, we're going to make 10,000 of these or 100,000 of these, and then we're going to try to go sell them all. Elon does a very interesting thing in automobile manufacturing that had never been done before, because most automobile makers didn't have the internet when they started. But when he said, I'm going to build this Cybertruck, he didn't go to VCs or go to investors or whatever and say, we need to raise capital to manufacture Cybertrucks and then market the fuck out of it and try to sell it. It's backwards. So Elon will do a keynote. They'll take a prototype Cybertruck on stage and go, you can pre-order this now. And they sold 3 million Tesla Cybertruck pre-orders at $1,500 a pop. And then they took that fucking capital and went and built the Cybertrucks that everybody ordered. So they use media and marketing and technology to build the demand for a product that they hadn't even started manufacturing yet. And if you remember, the prototype wasn't even that good. They were trying to show the shatterproof windows, and he fucking blasted through one, and it didn't do any of the shit that it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but the hype was there, and Apple kind of did that with their products too, where they would do these keynotes and they would unveil the new technology. This is the iPad. This is and then they were able to gauge demand on pre-orders so that they would never overproduce. So supply chain is very different now. And particularly when you have a product like his, that's high demand, you can structure your flow in a way where it's no longer build, brand, sell. It's sell, build, brand. And so if it were my company and I had somebody like that who has the demonstrated history of being successful, I would say, here's a design, tell us how, like, you can pre-order it, and we would collect pre-orders, and then we would make a decision that when we're going to cut it off, and then we just go to a manufacturer and go, this is exactly how many we need. And then we get to work on the next thing. So I definitely believe it can be done. That's one way to do it. There's a handful of other ways to do it. But
so that's direct to consumer.
Yeah, that's sort of my background, is like direct to consumer. And then of course you have two channels of that. You have e-commerce, which is just digital goods, sold to consumers directly. But when we're talking about his message and everything else and the communal experience, that can't really happen digitally in terms of buying and selling products. And so I think my background in stores specifically is interesting to the guys over there, because I think they envision, like, we want to get back to this more analog way of exchanging goods and services, and actually having like tangible experiences where there's a chance to like have a human interaction when you buy something. It's sort of going back to what I said about the spiritual power of respecting the privilege to have a moment to touch another person in your day. And I don't mean physically, just to come across them. And I think part of the way we fix society where we're at right now is by forcing that. I think we have to force people into more social situations where they have to interact with each other. And I think if we do that, I think we can start to steer society in a better direction. Like, I don't believe in mental illness. That's one of the controversial takes I have. I just don't believe in it. I think it's a simple diagnosis for a much more complex spiritual problem we have as people. And I think it's a problem we created. And we created it by going, you don't even need to leave your house to get your sneakers or your groceries or your whatever. You can just stay at home and we'll send it all to you. And people stopped valuing the ability to socially interact with each other. And they stopped valuing the communal experience of just how, like, even we talk, like, a lot of times on the right, people will be like, we don't even know how to hunt or cook anymore. And it's like, that's even going further back. Like, you don't even need to go that far back to figure out where we went wrong. We don't necessarily need to hunt and We don't even need to have to like hunt and grow our own food anymore. How about just like saying hi to a person when you go to buy your food? Like that's how far removed we are. And one of the things, again, like looking back on my life and going, why were all my experiences my experience? When we were talking about shopping experience and the importance of that, I thought back to my time working in video stores. And what was so amazing about that concept was it was a real communal shopping experience. You'd go in a video store with your boys or your mom and dad, and you'd talk to other families. What did you guys? Did you guys see this? What is this? Was this good? Oh, I fucking hate that actor. And you'd have this interaction with other customers because you're all in this communal space wanting to do this same thing. And then you would go home and watch these movies with your family or whatever. And so in a weird way, it's like we technologically, we're like, oh, we can do this better. We'll just put the movies on your TV. You don't even have to leave the house to rent them. But it's like so much of that experience was about the human interaction with other people, the tribal community, like, I fucking hate Ben Stiller. You know what I mean? Or like, I love Ben Stiller. So that we lost a lot of that human interaction because the convenience was more sexy to us. And we never realized what the human cost is of convenience. And so I really think he has some interesting ideas and visions about restoring the like getting rid of some convenience for the purpose of restoring the human interaction part of it. And I think that's really interesting. And I think it's not just in commerce. I think it's something we should look at across the board in the way we live our lives of like, is this ultimately a better thing or not? Like people go, social media ruined, society. And it's like, well, maybe in the sense of, maybe in the technological sense of it's very lazy and there's no human cost to having conversation. Like we talked earlier about, there's no consequences for some people and there's all the consequences for other people. So we're not on an even playing field. Because back in the real world, if you said something that offended somebody, they might punch you in the fucking mouth. And then you might be enemies forever, or you might become best friends. You never know what way that's going to go. But I think social media is an important thing because I think it's going to show us what the human cost of not actually being in front of each other and talking to each other is. And then I think we have the power to fix it. It's the same thing I say about abortion. I think more important or more damaging to society, whether you are pro-life or pro-choice or whatever, the cavalierness we've had about abortion for the last 20 years has lowered the value of human life for everybody, even on a subconscious level. I think we value human life less because we've, in this one circumstance, been able to easily go, it's not a person. That's not, that's just for my own convenience. I'll rationalize it however I want. That's not a person. It's a clump of cells. Life doesn't really begin. I mean, when is it a bit? We get into these philosophical conversations, but the resounding end result is that we value human life less and less and less and less. The more we talk about it, the more we compartmentalize it and everything else. And so all these things I feel like are related. And this is the spiritual crusade of like, how do we look technology in the face and say, some of you is good for us and some of you is bad for us? And then what do we do as a species for our own good? Like, I hate vegetables. You can tell by looking at me, but I know if I don't eat them, I'm going to die really soon. Right. And I think for some of us, we have to start to look at things like Twitter and look at things like Amazon and look at some of these things and go, this is not good for us. And abortion, I don't give a shit if it makes your life better or not. It's not good for us as a species to engage in something that is destructive to our species merely because of convenience. Just like watching Netflix might be more convenient, but there is a social and cultural and human cost to watching movies that way versus having to go pick them off of a wall next to other people that are in your neighborhood. And I know that sounds silly to compare it, but I really feel like there's a correlation.
Wow. I do remember, like when you said that, I just remember going to Blockbuster and renting video games and, especially if it was a Friday night. You would talk to other
kids about games, right?
Yeah, it was a Friday night, which, usually you rented, you got a 2-day thing. So it was like that Friday didn't count, right? And you brought it back Sunday. So, or you brought it back Monday. So it's a line. You're sitting in line and you're talking video games with the people around. You're right. You're absolutely right. Also, I'm a huge perpetrator of Amazon. The other day, I bought deodorant on Amazon. I was just like, I don't feel like going to the store. I'm going to order a 4-pack off Amazon. I'm terrible.
Yeah, I do it too. I'm like I live off Amazon, right?
Yeah.
And that's not good.
Yeah. And I said it as I was doing, like, this is not good. This is not good. But I'm going to hit buy, and it's going to be here tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. And then think about, what's so funny is like, I even think about food delivery. So like when I was in my 20s, I always worked odd hours, like in the video stores and stuff. You're working like 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. So I ate fast food and I ate bad. I've eaten bad my whole life. It's my only vice really is bad eating. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't really do anything, but bad eating has always been the bane of my existence. And, I remember thinking like it never used to be anything for me to get in the car and go to like a Taco Bell at 2 a.m. That was just life.
Right.
And now I'm literally like, man, if everything's closed on Uber Eats, I guess I'll make something at home. Like the idea of even getting in my fucking car and driving to a fast food restaurant is something that's like an inconvenience to me now, where 20 years ago, I wouldn't have thought twice about it because that's how you went and got your junk food.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
it's like, yeah, there's all these things that like I think we're like, oh, this is so cool, I don't have to. Oh, this is cool, I don't have to. Like, think about dating apps. Like, oh, cool, I don't have to go out and be vulnerable in public with another person at the hope of having a human connection. I can just not do that. It's like, do you really think that that's the best way to establish human connection is by avoiding it? And some of these things are so simple.
That's the next thing I wanted to bring up was like, we talk about human interaction. Obviously, we have to talk about dating. And I was talking to somebody about this earlier, about just like the amount of violence we've seen spike. We lost Takeoff today, and we've lost previous rappers and whatever. And the person I was talking to had lost a family member as well. And I said to him, you know what else is the problem? Men ain't getting no pussy. And I think a lot of it has to do with social media, because it's probably harder to get with a chick nowadays. Right?
Well, I tweeted this the other day, and it was kind of like in reference to Kanye, but in reference to Tom Brady. And I just go like, can you imagine the audacity of women to be like, I know I'm married to the greatest man who ever lived to do this thing, but I'm still not happy with that. Like, how can you be Gisele Bündchen and be like, not only do you get to know, but you've had children and shared your life with the greatest man to ever play football that's ever fucking lived. And only a woman could go, I think I can do better. I think I could, maybe I could do better. Maybe I could have more, And so like, yeah, man, it's a bad thing. And the problem, that's sort of the problem with technology for women is, and this is, people say this is misogynist, but I'll tie it up at the end. Women, in their indecisiveness, when presented with the options of everything in the known universe at their disposal, it is a horrible temptation, and it inevitably leads to their unhappiness. So women have access to more men than they've ever had access in their lives, and they're more miserable than they've ever been collectively in human existence. And it is because women have this natural predication, and some of it is like survival instinct. Like, I do believe there's a human component that women have of like, you are the weaker species, so you must seek out strength and protection. But it's gotten to a point where it's like, women have an inability to value the bird in the hand, and are always looking at the two in the bush going, how do I get those two over there? And so it's poison for them. The hypergamy they're allowed to have by, like, think of it this way. Women can go on an internet website and take naked pictures of their body and make income at 10 times the rate of the average everyday American person, just by being like, I'll just fist myself in front of my iPhone and I can make $10,000 a month. And that's if I don't blow up.
Well,
Right?
Amaranth wasn't doing all of that, and she still was making that kind of money.
Huge money. I mean, there are women who don't even get all the way nude on there that make $10,000-$20,000 a month.
Right.
And so what's insane to me is that like we have really fucked women with technology and these options, because now women believe like I don't have to be a mother and I don't have to work, and I can have any man. I have access to any man on earth. And so all we've done is give women every possible option on the menu, and the absolute impermanent lack of understanding of self to appreciate any of it. Because they just keep turning pages of the menu. Oh, that's nice. Oh, there's something else. Oh, there's something more. Oh, there's, and
it's a Cheesecake Factory menu.
It is. Yeah, exactly. It is. And it's just like, what do I want today? And what I think is actually interesting on the flip side of that for men is that I think that's why you're seeing this real push in the trad movement and Gavin really pushes this, which I don't disagree that it's good for society. I just think it should happen organically. But he very much pushes like for young men to like stop fucking around, like find a good woman, settle down, marry her, have children, and fucking, continue the Western experiment of what this country was supposed to be. That's a big part of his message. And I hate to be to compact it and be summarizing of it to where it's not as grandiose or detailed or thorough as I'm sure he can explain it way better than me. But men, I think, now value connection to the point where men are being more willing to settle down and marry women and have like this idea that men just want to go out and fuck everything. I think it's actually the other way. I think men are like, man, it would be great to just have somebody, because they're looking at women on the other side of the table in the way that the world works these days, and women can have anyone in their minds. And men are so I think for men we have this we're sort of like having a good reaction to the way things have changed, and it's destroying women, and very much to the point where like you'll see these women like Demi Lovato or Emily Ratajkowski, and they have all the money in the world, and they've dated the highest profile people in the world, and they can pretty much have whatever they want, and they're fucking miserable. They're miserable. And it's because they can have whatever they want, and because they know they can have whatever they want, they can't appreciate anything.
Yeah.
Right? Like scarcity builds value. Like why is a trading card of value? Because there aren't a lot of them, right? Like the ones that there are a lot of aren't worth a lot, and the ones that there's only 2 or 3 out in the world, they're worth a ton of money, comic books, everything. And so men look at women sort of like, wow, the amount of women that actually might like me could maybe only be 1 or 2. So if I find one of those I like, I'm going to really pull her down. And women look at men and go, oh, this is like ordering products from Amazon. I can have whatever I want, wherever I want it, at whatever time. And so I can't be happy with anything, because I'm always looking out the window. I'm always looking at like, what else could I have? What more could I have? And so when I talk with people about my relationship, like I've been with my girlfriend for 10 years, and there are so many things in our relationship that aren't perfect, but the fact that we are still together and that we love each other enough to still be together, that's all that matters. And like if she complains to her friends about parts of me, things about me, and if I complain to my friends about things about her, they just go like, why would you put up with that? Like, you deserve better. Everyone tells us we deserve better. And I go, wait a minute. Do you have any idea all the good things this person has been in my life? Like when the entire internet was calling me a white supremacist and we were getting death threats and everything else, where the fuck were any of you? Right? Like you weren't at my house being like, hey man, don't kill yourself. You know what I mean? She was. And so if she's a little annoying from time to time or does things that drive me nuts, I think I can pay that cost for somebody who's willing to shoulder the fucking burden of being hated by the entire fucking world, and going through that fire with me. And that's the other thing is like, because life is easy in terms of technology and everything else, people don't have to go through shit together anymore that they had to go through. War, famine, poverty, like couples that had to go through those things are some of the great. And for the longest time when I was a young dude, a lot of women I dated were Black women whose fathers were ministers or veterans or something like that. And they were some of the best. I'll tell you this, man. If you want to find a good woman, find a woman who has a great relationship with her father, and you'll find a woman who will take care of you for the rest of your life, because those women had this profound sense of loyalty from watching their parents go through shit together, experience hardship together. And if you're unwilling to experience hardship with a person, you're never, ever gonna find that so-called soulmate. Soulmates aren't born, they're made. Like, and it's about what two people can endure together, and the value they can see in each other over the course of their lives together. And it's like, and this is the thing that's funny is like my girl, she does a lot of events and stuff in LA. So she'll be out with like rappers and celebrities and people that are way more rich than me. And my boys will be like, you just fine with your girl hanging out with these people? And I go, yeah, because if spending time around other people doesn't make her love and appreciate me more, then we're with the wrong people. Like, men have to lose that insecurity, and women too. Let your fucking partner go out and be around all the people in the world. You ever heard that you ever see that old shirt that was like, the more people I meet, the more I love my dog? Well, that's how it should be with everyone in your life. The more people you meet, the more you should love your actual friends, your girlfriends, your wives, your family. Meet everybody, and you will come home and go, thank God you're not that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we don't meet enough people to appreciate the people we do get in our lives.
Yeah, so true. So what does that mean for young men in dating now? Like, is it possible for a young man to, I feel like you probably got to just marry your high school sweetheart, because when she graduates from high school, everybody got access to her and she gone. So
yeah.
So like, if you ain't got your high school sweetheart, you're either, a millionaire and you can get you a couple of chicks, or you just, you got your dick in your hand.
I'll tell you this right now. The best way is find a way to take sex off the table and spend 6 months with somebody. Like I'm like we should legalize prostitution guy at the same hand, because I think, I think it's already happening and it's just unsafe.
Yeah.
So I have that like libertarian mentality. But on the flip side, if you're really trying to have a connection with people, like, don't involve finances or sex in getting to know somebody for 6 months. And if you can really enjoy each other's company, or have shared interests, or things that you like about each other, or world perspective that you share, and that's enough to make you want to spend time with each other, then you can build something from that.
But they can't even get the girl to that point.
It's hard. Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you, it's interesting though, because like, if you look at the more conservative side of like social media, like I did this like poll, and we had this back and forth on Twitter a couple weeks ago, because we'll sit around and we'll watch like TV, and we'll be like, who's on your list? Like, who's celebrities that like you'd be allowed to cheat with, right? And we go through this list, and my girlfriend asked me like, who would yours be? And I was like, I can't even think of like an A-list actress that interests me enough that I would be like, I would even want to pursue that person. But I could tell you this, in terms of like conservative influencer space, I could think of 5, because I think they're interesting people, right? Like, these are women who, grew up on a farm, and they shoot guns, and they own businesses, and they involved in the church and involved in the community. And they have like women who have created pro-life organizations, and they fucking go to campus and they stand in the face of opposition of people who hate them, and are willing to like stand up for what they believe in. That shit is interesting to me. So I think first, before you can even know where to go look for the right person for you, you have to know yourself. Like, what turns me on, and not just in a primal way. Like, what turns me on about people? And for me, it's always been people who are willing to stand in the face of unpopularity and stare it down and go, I don't give a fuck if you like me or not. I believe what I believe. I'm going to fight for what I want. So any human, man, woman, whatever, those are the people I fuck with. So like, women who are willing to be like, women who are pro-life, who are willing to go on a college campus and give a talk and have people throw shit at them and scream at them and go like, that's a powerful person to me. That's the kind of person that I'm interested in talking to and meeting. And so I think that's the answer. It's like it's not a catch-all for everybody, but you got to really think about like what are my values and what kind of people do I really fuck with, and then where do I find that in the opposite sex? And sometimes that's hard, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh man. All right, let's go back to Yeezy. I love that part of this conversation. I love that part. I think it's going to be a very popular part. Again, subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and the audio link is in the description box below.
Do you like this 90s Spike Lee angle I got on the webcam here where it's slightly tilted? I was just looking at my thing and I was like, man, my fucking angle's all weird, man.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I like the business model you were talking about. However, is it possible to make him a billionaire like that? An 11 billionaire or whatever it was.
Well, what's interesting? So here, this is the way I look.
I mean, he's still got to go to China to get these shoes off, right?
Nope, not necessarily.
Okay,
no, and that's another question too. So like, you can make a little bit more money if you manufacture in China, but is it the right thing to do for America? Is the right thing to do for our Western human experience?
Right.
You know what's crazy? This is what I always laugh at is like when we used to talk at Crocs about manufacturing, and we had manufacturing in America, we had manufacturing in China. And what's kind of interesting right now is the way the world economy is. The savings you make by using slave labor, let's call it what it is, using slave labor in fucking China and India, is now almost negated by what it costs to ship shit from China and India. Right. So it's like, so really, if we're talking about like, let's say a pair of shoes cost $9 to make in China, and we can make it in the US for $18 or $25, but we can give someone in America a job and we can not ship it. So let's say it costs $9, but it costs $6 to get it from China. So now we're looking at 15 and we can make it in America for 25. So we have two choices. We can make $10 less a unit, or we can raise the price by $10 and feel no effect if we believe the customer will pay it. And every day, corporations have enough greed to go, we're not going to lose that $10. Do you know what I mean? Like, how fucking disgusting is that those are the real numbers we're talking about? And let's use high-end footwear as an example. What's the retail price? $200, $300 a pair. Right. So you're going to go, boy, we just can't afford to only make $180 a pair. We have to make $190 a pair. Like, ew, dude. And again, what is the fucking human cost of that $10? Yeah. Less jobs in America, less economic opportunity in America. It's just bad for America. Yeah. And that's a lot of what Trump was espousing from an economic perspective. Was like, he was like, listen, I'm just gonna, frankly, if you look at it, if we just tax the fuck out of people to bring things from overseas, they'll make it here. We'll just make that a bad business decision for people to go over there and do this shit, because what we're doing is you're not enriching you're not even enriching the Chinese people by giving them the jobs. Like, they're working for slave wages, and all the factory money and all the tariffs and all the licensing and it's going to the fucking Chinese government. So we're not even helping people in these other countries by doing this. We're fucking them and we're fucking us, because an executive in a boardroom wants his stock to be a little bit more money this year. It's like, it's grotesque. It's grotesque. And what I think is so interesting about the prospect of working with someone who understands that is like, I genuinely believe he would rather have $9 billion and have American jobs and happy people and ethical fucking operations than to have $11 billion and make their shit off slavery. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, and by the way, can it be done? Yes. And do I think it has to be done? Yes. Somebody, and this is where I get like ramped up, and I'm like, you should go back at the jugular of these companies and go, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I was ethically incorrect in my public speech of opinion in representing a company that makes money on slavery. You know what I mean? Your business is slavery. That's how you make your fucking products. And Apple's the same way, right? Did my mic go out?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. So it's like, you can really clap back at some of these organizations who are like, we can't be associated with a celebrity who says controversial shit. And it's like, your whole business model is exploiting people that don't look like us. That's your whole fucking business model.
Yeah.
So this idea that a corporation like Adidas or one of these other companies will sit around and go, we have an ethic responsibility to distance ourselves from people with bad opinions. What about everyone on your fucking board of directors who's like, well, if we can get that Chinese labor rate down 10 more cents, I might be able to buy a third Aston Martin this year. Ugh. Oh, dude. And so, yeah, I mean, and some of it's messaging, some of it's getting it out there. Like, one of the scary things talking with another person in this process was like, you're great to be a part of this team, but you're also bad because you're a fucking samurai too, man. And you're like, no, we should be going at these people. Like, and when you're in a room with somebody who also has that attitude and you get together, it can be a little bit like, it could be like a war conversation. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, go back to The Godfather. You got to have a Michael and a Sonny. You can't have two Sonnies in the room. And putting me and Kanye in a room together is like having two Sonnies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it could get to be, if we're ramping each other up in the wrong way, it can be bad. You know what I mean? Or not even bad, but just like we can get real confrontational about like, yeah, let's go to war. And that's probably not the smart thing, So you got to sometimes pull it back and be like, yeah, let's, this is the right thing to do and whatever. And so, yeah, it's sort of like, and what I think is so interesting is like, I love his perspective that like the answers will come to us because it's not really up to us to decide. God will tell us what to do and it's up to us to listen. And it's like, God damn, dude, I wish I had the faith to live my life like that up until this point, because I would have been a happier person.
Yeah. And that's how I talk to my team. It's something I've realized a little while back and kind of just put one foot in front of the other, let go and let God, right? So going back to my previous statement where I said, Kanye will not be able to meet demand. I think your business model is actually perfect. It's a business model I've pitched in the past to a lot of people, and they were like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, all right, whatever. Totally makes sense though. So I think the trade-off here is, which I get because I walked away from having a 6-figure career to take a pay cut to do this, right? To do the right thing, right? So I think it's about taking a pay cut to be free for Ye, right?
Yes.
It's like,
yes,
yeah, I'm not going to be the richest black man in the world anymore, but I'll be doing the right thing. I'll be free. I'll be doing it my way, and I'll still be rich. I won't be as rich, but I'll still be rich.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like, I think the public's perception is that he talks about those things because he cares about those things. Like, I'm the richest black man ever, and I'm the biggest black billionaire ever. And it's like, I've come to learn very quickly that is not, he doesn't say those things because it's valuable to him. He says those things because it's valuable to everyone else, meaning like it's his way of saying, this is why I belong at the table. This is why you should believe in me. This is why you should trust me. I don't think the man gives a fuck about having money at all. And I know people would say that's insane. I don't believe that because I've watched his interviews and I've seen the way he talks about money and he cares about that. And that's all he cares about. I mean, it is so far from the human being. And it's like, it is more like, and just in a few conversations. So it's like, I'm not trying to be like, I live at the dude's house now. It's not like that. Yeah. It's just been a handful of conversations and interactions, but it's like, I think one of my gifts is being able to really understand and read people very quickly. And I learned very quickly that the public perception that he cares about his wealth is so off base from the human being, because never once in any of these conversations has he ever showed any interest in making money, ever. And I'm the one who's going, yeah, but don't we need to make money to pay for all this shit? And like, that's what I do. Like, I can help you understand how we can make money. Never once has that been of any interest in the entire discussion of anything we've talked about, is like, how much money can we make? Not once. did that ever come up from his side. If anything, if anyone else starts talking about how much money people can make, he's like, that's not why we're doing it though. Like he'll shut it down. And like, that's not important. That's not important. This is what's important. So like, I can tell you that I think a lot of that behavior and rhetoric from him was just about demanding a seat at the table. And what I hope comes out of this whole thing is that he's surrounded by people. And if I'm one of those people, like, inshallah, then that's God's will. But I hope he's surrounded by people that are going, just build your own table. Like, stop demanding a seat at other people's table. Like, Jesus wasn't renting that table for the that was his table, right? And I'm being hyperbolic, right? But like, that's not that. There wasn't like a Hilton logo in the background of the Last Supper of like, we just got the conference room for a few hours, y'all, and then we got to get the fuck out of here. Like, so I hope that what comes out of this turmoil in his life is that he becomes content with building his own table and putting the people that he wants at it. And if I can be a carpenter who helps shape the legs of that table or dresses the table or even sets that table, then that's my role, and that's what I've been called to do. And by the way, if I get thrown away out of the table, then that's also my role to accept, and that's the part in it I play. So and I really believe that is what will come out of this, and ultimately it will be good. And what's interesting to me is I think there are a lot of people who are willing to look at him and see the good and see the fact that like this is all getting blown out of proportion. He's being made an example of because he threatens the current power structure. Like, those people only have power if everyone wants to sit at their table. And then it's like the lunchroom, right? And so like his whole life, Ye has wanted to sit at the popular kids' table. And I think he's realizing like wherever you sit becomes the popular kids' table. And not only is that true, but you have the power to disrupt the popularity of every other table in the lunchroom. And so once you really feel emboldened and empowered to know that, you'll look at that table of Jews. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, Lord.
And you'll just go, nah, motherfucker, we ain't sitting at your table. Your table's whack. And nobody wants to fuck with your table anymore, and we're gonna go sit over at our table. And so I think he's at that place, and I think a lot of his supporters see that that's what it is. This isn't about race, this isn't about religion, this isn't about anti-Semitism, this isn't about anything other than trying to re-engineer the way that we look at power structures and saying like, these people only have power because we give it to them, and they're going to try to remind you that it's theirs to give or take away, and that the invitation to be sitting at the table is up to them, and your table can never be as cool or as powerful as theirs. And that fear is why people don't go sit by themselves. And as a kid, I always fucking went and sat by myself. If I didn't like the vibe, if I didn't like, I'll go sit by myself over here. And then eventually I developed the social skills to where other people would come to my table and they'd be like, oh, what are you doing over here? What? And that I did that through humor. I did that through being a class clown and being funny. And so then it got to, I didn't have the leadership, abilities as a kid to like give off that energy. I had to earn it by being silly and funny and entertaining. And then people would be like, well, at least if we go sit with him, he's gonna make us laugh. I was never scoring cool points in high school. Like I couldn't just sit and put out the vibe. But people would want to be around me because I would make them laugh. And so it's so strange to just talk about the world economy and everything that's wrong socially in terms of the high school lunchroom in the cafeteria, but that's literally what it is. Yeah. And that's what we're watching unfold right now.
So true. So true. I relate a lot to this conversation. Ryan Roding said, HJ, thoughts on a bird, which is the bald eagle. I don't even know what you're talking about.
That's great. That's a reference to shout outs to Censored TV fans, to the pool shitters and the Jesus Christ, they're gonna hate me because I forget. Oh, baby monsters in the pool shitters. Shout outs.
Oh, that's an inside joke.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Got you. Inside the Agents said, paying my dues. This content is top shelf at bottom shelf prices. Money well spent. This is the home of living culture, hope, and liberty. Appreciate you, man. Make sure you guys subscribe to my Rumble channel as we start to migrate away from YouTube. And in case you don't see me here one day, I'll be on Rumble. Don't be like, hey, where'd Hotep Jesus go? Now I'm on Rumble. Come check me on over there.
Different lunch table.
Yeah, different lunch table. And as you were speaking, I'm like, I don't even want to be on Rumble. You know, I'm a peasant.
I know. I went through that. You know what's funny is people all the time, like my haters and shit that don't like me will give me shit like, what happened to your locals? What happened to this? And it's like, you know, I was one of the first people to adopt locals. And then I just, at some point I was like, listen, I did this because I wanted a place to put like paid content. And now I'm like helping someone build their own social media platform just to house my paid content. I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to build Dave Rubin's Facebook so that I can have like a bonus podcast episode up on a website. I'll put it on a different website. I'll put it on my own website, or I'm using Gumroad now, which is literally just it's like a splash page with access to paywall content. I'm not building and developing income for another person to try to beat Facebook just to have bonus content for my people. I just had this real weird, like, I just felt that the whole thing was sort of exploitative of like, oh, this is going to be like the right wing or cancel. Like, this is the alternative to Facebook. And it's like, yeah, but you're not innovating anything like we talked about of like, how do we make a social media? Everyone, this is the big challenge everyone has. They go, we want to make a social media that isn't toxic. And it's like, yeah, we had that. It was called hanging out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you can recreate hanging out, like, I actually think shit like this and Twitch is a better alternative to like post it and leave it social media, because it's forcing people to be interactive in a human way. I think Discord is better for humanity than Twitter or Facebook or locals or any of that kind of shit. That's publishing. It's literally like the idea that we've turned everyone into a writer and we're going to read their publishing every day and pretend that we have some insight into their life.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, it's this weird thing. And I felt really gross at one point. I was just sitting there going like, why am I steering people to this fucking website? I don't even use it. Yeah. I don't even use this social media platform for any reason other than dropping content on it. Right. So why would I even promote this for someone else? It's a product I don't believe in.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I stopped using it, and I just I put my bonus episodes up on Gumroad, and then I put everything else out on my website. But yeah, it's like, and then, you know, we were talking about this the other night because of Parler and like what's going to happen with that. And so, you know, it was sort of like the conversation, everyone's like, oh yeah, well, you could do this with Parler, you could do that with Parler, or you could do this. And it's like, yeah, but if the tech sucks and nobody wants to use it, who cares what it stands for? Was literally his words. Like, if the product sucks and it's not a fun experience and it's not good, like what it doesn't matter. Exactly. Like, the reason that Twitter is successful and popular is because the tech is good and it's the best product for what it is, and limiting people's thoughts and sort of getting people to edit their thoughts in these short digestible things, and being able to like tag on topics and like Elon's not wrong when he says it's the digital town square. It's really what it is. And it's the best. I think Twitter is the best social media we have. And I know that's not saying much, but I think it is. And I think it will get better with him at the helm for sure. And I think everything else is just trying to be that. To me, the only way that I think you can beat Twitter is if you do some of the things we talked about, like no anonymity, and make it more collaborative and interactive. Like, I love spaces on Twitter. I think that's something that's being underutilized and probably needs some work on how to make people like more. Like, I would love to be able to click into Twitter and click a topic, like a trending topic, and then I see 30 spaces talking about that topic. Like, we shouldn't even be tweeting with hashtags. It should literally be like, here's the hashtag, and then get into a conversation about this thing. You could almost create, again, if I were in charge of Parler, I wouldn't have any text. It would be, these are the trending topics, and it would almost be like Clubhouse in a way, but you would it would be like a mix between Clubhouse and Twitter, where it's like, here's a topic, and if you want to jump into a room and talk with real people about this, you can do it, and there's no anonymity. So you got to show your face. You got to let people know who you are. And you could jump into a space and go, here's what I think. Here's what I think. That's really sharing ideas. That's a real town square. And if you could tech that up and make it to where there's nothing text, it's all spoken. But it's topic based, idea based, whatever you want to do, trending things. Black coaches in the NFL. Are there enough? Are there not enough? Jump into a room and talk with people about it. We would actually take social media and bring it back to a place of making people actually be social. Like, that's what's so funny about calling it social media, is because it really is antisocial in nature. And if you could create a platform where you're forcing social interaction and you're removing anonymity, because there is no social interaction with anonymity. That's not a real social interaction. So if you pull anonymity from it and people actually have to speak to each other, and that's what's so funny is you'll watch people in the comments on Twitter be like, fuck you, you pussy. And you'll go into spaces and nobody's talking like that because people don't speak that way to each other, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, is like, you want to remove the toxicity from Twitter. Two things. Don't let people say shit they don't mean. Make them say it and take away their anonymity, and you will fix social media. So if any of the conversations I had, listen, if that's what Parler is in 6 months, you'll know where it came from. So
yeah, that was my problem with all these other tech companies. It's just like they don't innovate. It's like you just copied what Twitter did and then slapped a new name on it. And I'm like, why would I buy into this? Like, why would I? And the other thing, is a lot of these social networks have reached out to me and was like, hey, I want to join. And I'm like, if you don't put me in the boardroom and put me on a cap table, I'm not joining, because I'm basically, if you take, let's say I take 1,000 of my most loyal followers and I bring them over to you, that's technically worth about $100,000 to you.
Yeah.
Depending on how you, judge the value of a consumer. Let's say you say each person is worth $100. Well, I just brought you $100,000 because you're going to leverage that, go get more VC money, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So the more I have this conversation, the more I realize that if Rumble don't roll out the red carpet for me within the next 90 days, I'll just build my own shit and we'll just have fucking Hotep Tube.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Gavin did with Censored TV, and it's cool, its own cool little world, man. Like, when people ask me what is Censored TV, they go, is that another right wing or political thing? I go, no, man, it's like this generation's National Lampoon. I mean, it's like some of it's political, but there's also just some weird shit on there. Like, Atheism is Unstoppable is like a current events show hosted by a guy who's like a cartoon kangaroo. Like, it's weird, it's funny. Soph is on there. I don't know how old she is. She's like 13 or 14 or something crazy. She had like millions of followers on Twitter and got canceled. But it's basically like all these canceled. My buddy Josh LaCash has a show on there called Wrong Opinion. Jim Goad, the incredible author. Anybody who doesn't know who Jim Goad is, literally just go to Amazon and start buying his books, or go to jimgoad.com or .net, buy his books. Like, we just have this collection of really interesting people who are unafraid to say unpopular shit. And when you put all those people together, it's wild. Like, we've been doing these events, and I'm meeting some of these other guys like Jim Goad and Josh LaCash and other people on the network. And it sounds like you have a background in business and corporate stuff. Like, very rarely do you ever go to a business function and like everybody you work with. And every time I meet somebody new that does something with Censored TV, I'm like, God, we all like each other. We all, even if we don't agree on everything, we all appreciate the fact that we are the same kind of people cut from the same cloth, of like, we're not afraid to say unpopular shit. And we find that interesting. Like, we also are interested in people who are unafraid to say unpopular shit.
Yeah.
And be weird. Like, there's just some weirdness to it too. Like, you look at like Lotus, some of the other shows on the network. Donovan, oh God, I should kick myself in the junk for not even saying Crip Daddy, who does a show on Censored TV, is one of the newer shows. Dude, this show is like out of like 1990s MTV, like late night, weird, like just creepy, weird, funny.
Yeah.
Like, it's just you look at a show like that and you go, this should be on. It kind of has like a Wonder Shows in vibe. I don't know if you ever watched that with Andy Milonakis, but like, it has a little bit of that vibe.
Yeah.
And Donovan's a brilliantly funny comedian, quadriplegic comedian, and so funny and so dark, and like, this is a show that it's like, if you had a person like this doing a late night talk show on TV, I have faith it would be the #1 show in America, because it would just be so crazy and random and interesting. And no network would ever have the guts to do that. No network would be like, let's put this fucking quadriplegic guy with this dark sense of humor and crazy views and put him on TV. And he just and has such a perspective, like, not to like dive into personal shit, but before we did, he was at our Chicago show, and leading up to that, he and I had like a 3-hour conversation about comedy and life. And he's new to being a comedian, like an actual stand-up, which sounds funny to say about a guy who's a quadriplegic, but and just like his perspective on life of like, dude, they didn't believe I was gonna live, and now I'm a comedian and I'm making people laugh and I have an audience, and it's like I've had this purpose that like at the darkest times of my life I never would have imagined. And it's like, dude, that's why when I left that show in Chicago, I had this immense feeling of like, we are the good guys in a spiritual crusade and war. Like, the people who do what we do have really good hearts and really good intentions and are really trying to, maybe in the most fucked up way, make the world a better place, even if it's confrontational or adversarial in nature. And I'd rather make no money and be on the side of those people than be the richest person in the world surrounded by people who care about nothing.
Right.
Which is the city I live in. Like, that's Los Angeles to a T. It's just, you know, I could drive into Los Angeles and go to Craig's or go to Catch or any of these restaurants, the Palm, and be immediately surrounded by people who have everything and care about nothing. And that's why I'm really hard on not leaving LA. Like, it's easy to run away from the fight. Everybody's like, oh, LA's a lost cause. Why are you still there? Why are you still there? Because I'm chosen to be here. Like, it's part of my story to be here and to fight and to get in the face of people who believe in nothing and go, nah, we're not going to live like that.
Right.
That's not going to be existence. Like, you don't get, like, they only win if we quit. That's the thing, is like, there's never been a failure in the history of society. There's only been winners and quitters.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
So, and that's what they're hoping. They're hoping that they can have everything, the beautiful beach real estate, and care about nothing but money and consumption and absolute domination, because they'll run unopposed and nobody will stand in their way and go, oh, how about you care about something? How about we start rewarding people who care about shit?
Yeah. Hell yeah. You know, first of all, I gotta say thank you, man. This conversation changed my life.
No, come on. That's very humbling to hear.
Oh yeah, it has. You have created a new world for me. You have given me a new, not necessarily a new outlook on life, but you've charged that outlook. I'm gonna tell you in a second what I just did while you were talking.
Well, and that's what this experience has done for me. And listen, if it's humbling to hear you say that, and if that's all that was supposed to come out of all this stuff for me was to be able to give that to you in some way, then that's enough. Like, that's what's cool about the acceptance of just sort of setting back and going, like, we're all part of a story. We're all part of each other's story. Like, I think we all suffer from main character syndrome a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really accepted the fact that, like, maybe I'm not the main character. Maybe I'm a really good supporting character. And maybe my job is to be a really good supporting character to other great men who have built things or are trying to build things, and to make them laugh and to make them feel supported and galvanized and to go do whatever they're intended and supposed to do. And I'm fine with that. If that's my life, that's cool. I think that's cool too.
Yeah. Rumble's on notice. I'm gonna build my own shit. I just made the decision to build my own shit. I just bought the domain. I just got confirmation. I just bought the domain. I'm not gonna say what it is yet.
Yeah.
But I bought the domain, and I'm gonna build my own YouTube.
There you go.
Fuck YouTube. Fuck Rumble. Fuck everybody. You got to come to Hotep's, and I'm gonna get a quote Adam, where you at, Adam? I need a quote ASAP, and I'm gonna build this app ASAP. We're gonna bring everything fucking in house. I'm tired of fucking sending my traffic everywhere else. We're gonna send the traffic
For a sucker share, by the way. That's one of the things you asked me earlier.
Sucker share.
Well, that's one of the things earlier you asked me about. You said, could Ye ever make the kind of money on his own that he made for Adidas? You know, his deal with Adidas was 20% of sales. So even though we look at that and go $2 billion, that was 15 to 20% of the revenue they were making off his fucking name. He was still taking 20% of his own legacy. And that was $2 billion.
Yeah.
So it's like, could he make that? Yeah, that was a sucker share of his own creation.
Yeah.
And it was easy. And we take those deals and we do those things because they are easy. And sometimes there are only so many fights we can endure in life. I had this conversation with my mom, who's a major inspiration for me, and really like steers me she's a lighthouse for me when it's dark and there's no one else around. She does a really good job of like centering me and bringing me back. And I remember when I was going through the hardest shit in my life, I was like, why is everything I go through a fucking fight? Why does everything, I have heartburn. I go, why does everything have to be a fight? And she goes, because you were born and chosen to be a soldier. Like, and not in the warfare sense, but in the spiritual sense of like, the world needs people that are willing to fight for shit that they believe in. And she's like, so it's an uncomfortable part of your existence that you have to accept. The reason everything is a fight is because you were made to be a fighter. You were made to be someone who will stand up and go, this is all fucked up what's happening here. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not somebody who's just going to sit in the crowd and go, oh, I guess, who am I to speak up? That's not my vibe. That's not who I've ever been. And so she's like, I know it feels burdensome at times, but it is what you're chosen to do. And maybe that's not just fighting for myself. Maybe that's fighting for other people and advocating for other people that I believe in, and I believe in their message, and I believe in who they are as people. So, it's like, you have that sense of, you were just saying like, why would I go build this ship for other people? And yeah, is doing your own thing harder? Fuck yeah, it's harder. But you're doing it because that's what you're intended to do. That is what you're supposed to do. And anything worth doing is hard. Right. That's what makes great men. Yeah. Doing hard things is what makes someone great. Like, nobody's ever watched somebody who's the best at something easy and been like, that's a great man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, nobody's ever been like, I am the champion at eating hot dogs. No one has ever looked at that dude and been like, that is a great man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, when you do things that are hard, that's what creates greatness.
I'm about to get on my yay shit right now. Hey, yo, Rumble. Hey, yo, y'all better recognize, if y'all don't cut me in at the table, if I don't got a spot on the board table, I'm out. I'm going to build my own table. If I'm not verified within a week, I'm building my own table. We ain't said none of the Hoteps to bring content over there. None of them. How about that? Y'all still ain't sent me an email, give my verification. If you don't cut us in, we're going to build our own table. I just had to get up.
There you go. That's it. That's a spot on. I was like, I was almost at PTSD because I was like, this is every conversation I've had now for the last week. It's been just us all yelling at each other on the phone. But man. Yeah, it's like, and it's cool, man. It's like, it's cool to feel alive and in the trenches. And I'll tell you the hardest part of like being a fighter is when you feel like a samurai, like you're the only one who fights and you're the only one that's doing it and you're on your own. And when you start to build a community and God bless Candace Owens for kind of putting all these people in the room together and understanding that like, that is what's needed right now, is for everyone to understand that like, you are not the only fighter and you need to meet the other fighters and the people who've gone through what you're going through and experienced it on some smaller scale. And like feel reinvigorated that not only are you not alone in fighting, but that other people will fight for you if you let them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like that's a really cool thing. And that's exciting, man. It's cool to hear you be like, I'm gonna go build my own table. Like, and hopefully more and more people do that.
And I know how to do it. Like I came from the tech world. I could definitely build my own YouTube. I don't need to build a YouTube where everybody can upload content. I just need a YouTube where I upload my content and you get it from me. You don't get it from YouTube. You get it from me direct, and you pay me, and I ain't got to cut fucking YouTube off 30% and get pennies from Rumble.
Right. I mean, and that's what's so crazy about all those platforms. And that's so funny because everyone will, and people will say this is a cope because my YouTube numbers are shit on my podcast, and that's fine. But I've always looked like people are like, why don't you crank out on YouTube? Like in 2006, when I was in Minnesota and I just started doing comedy, YouTube had just started in 06. And in summer of 07, I was like 6 months into doing comedy. And my boys, Kevin Kraft and another comic named KJ and another comic named Asa Thibodeau did a video called The Ghetto Whopper Freakout. And it was an all-black version. When I started doing stand-up, I started in all-black clubs with black comedians. And when they did this video, it went viral on YouTube and MySpace comedy videos and everything else. And it was just like the black version of like, we stopped selling the Whopper for one day. Remember those commercials? And they did a spoof of it that was an all black version. And they just called it the Ghetto Whopper Freakout. And it was really funny. And it went viral. And immediately Asa, the guy who ran that YouTube channel, was making like 50 grand a month on the ad revenue. This was back when the ad revenue was like 10 cents a click, something insane, right? And he was making insane money. And everyone was like, hey man, you like, Josh, you're funny. You can write, like, come over, make sketches with us, do this, do that. And I was just like, man, I just, it doesn't feel, that's not really like what I feel like you guys are building a media company for somebody else. Like, and this was before we knew what YouTube even was. It was like everybody would just upload videos. Like we'd be on the road and we'd have a digital camera and we would just be like filming shit and uploading it. Like nobody really knew what it was. And then was monetizing it so quickly. And I was like, if they're paying you $50,000 a month, what are they making?
What are they making?
You know what I mean? And I had that thought from the very beginning. So it's sort of like, and now that it's so diluted, it's like I could work. My friend Ty Rivera, hats off to him, is working around the clock to be a YouTube guy where he can make money off of YouTube and maybe not even ever have to do stand up again. And that's his choice. And that's what he's chosen to do. But like, man, I don't want to do that because for me, like doing shit, even as stimulating as conversations like this are, as much as I love it, it is not the same as being in a room with 100 people or 200 people and having like a real shared experience of making people laugh. I will never love any recorded medium as much as I love performing live. And yeah, that's why I was never excited about doing comedy on YouTube. There wasn't a financially good choice. It's not been a financially good choice to not really work hard at those things. And like really get good at like making content and being a good editor and being a good videographer. And like, there's all these other things, these trades that like other comedians have gotten really good at, to be successful. Like they have great YouTubes and they have huge numbers and their podcast is big or whatever. And they're okay comedians. They're 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 or maybe a 9 out of 10. But like they also have to be a 10 out of 10 editor and producer and content creator and all these other hats. And it's like, I just want to have interesting conversations with cool people, which to me is what comedy is on a group scale, is an interesting conversation with cool people. And all that other shit I'm not interested in, because the only reason I would do any of that is to make money. And I would hate, like, why would I do it? Like, to me, to like really work hard at getting really good at YouTube and content creation would be the same as if I got really good at building houses. They interest me about the same.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, if you got really good at content creation, you can make millions of dollars. Like that's what I thought was interesting about Mr. Beast, is like, this is a guy who probably has the biggest YouTube content creation valuation in history. And he literally was like, my passion was just to hack it and figure out how to get good at it. And it's like, okay, but like, what's the purpose of your life though?
Yeah.
To just hack that thing and get good and make it worth $1 billion?
Yeah.
Like, what do you live for?
Right.
And he's like, I don't spend any money. All my money goes right back into. So it's like, his existence is to feed this machine. So you're literally like a guy at the mouth at like outside of a cage of this giant monster, and your existence is to put a fish in that thing's mouth every 5 fucking minutes. And you're the best at it. And you fish the best fish. And that animal is never eaten better than it has from when you feed it.
Yeah.
But that's your existence, is just feeding. And it's like, okay, so if Mr. Beast has a $2 billion content creation company on YouTube, what is it making YouTube?
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, and listen, like, again, everyone will say like, that's just a cope for people who don't follow through or execute or apply themselves or work hard. But it's like, I have never been a guy who's ever been able to work hard at something that does not genuinely interest me.
Right.
And doing hot take videos. Like, I could go on YouTube every day and go, has everybody seen, like, you had Jeremy from The Quartering on. Jeremy makes a ton of money just commenting on shit that's going on in the world. And if that was the way that I had to wake up and live my life every day, I would blow my fucking brains out. Because it just doesn't, like, some things I don't care about.
Right.
And you got to wake up and go, well, this is trending, so I got to have an opinion.
Right.
And it's like, no, you don't. I could never imagine that being my existence. Like, I don't write comedy about everything that's trends or everything that's popular. I only write about the things that interest me or that I have, I think, a unique perspective on. And so the idea that, like, I would create an existence where I'm now, it's like Pavlov's dog. Like, the bell rings, something trends, and I got to go make content. Yeah. And that's how I live. And I could have a Tesla. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I live in a shitty 2-bedroom in Burbank. I've been here for 10 years. I'm fucking happy that when people go, like, oh, how are things going? Like, are you successful? Are you doing well? And I go, I wake up every day and I do whatever the fuck I want to do. And whatever I got to piece together to make a living and pay my bills or whatever is what I do. But more important to me is that I never stop waking up every day and doing whatever the fuck I want to do. And that to me is the most, that to me is wealth. That to me is freedom of being like, just like shit we take for granted. Like, I can wake up and one of my best friends lives right next door to me. We're like Jerry and Kramer. Another comedian named Carl Spitali. And people will go, you guys aren't Jerry and Kramer. You're more like Kramer and Newman because I'm fat. But anyway, and we're both like up each other's ass about conspiracy theories all the time, which is fun. But like the idea that we live a life where we can wake up and be like, what do you want to do? You want to go have lunch and just go? Like, I used to watch like Seinfeld. I'd be like, what kind of life when I was in my 20s? I was like, these guys just, they don't have jobs. They could just go hang out at the coffee shop like every day.
Yeah. And
now that's like a version of my life. And I'm like, how great is that to be able to be like, let's just go sit in a place and have lunch and shoot the shit and talk and rile other people up around us. And we'll sit through lunch and watch the lunch rush end and everybody rush back to their jobs. And you're just like, what are you doing this for? Like, what are you guys doing that for? So you can have a Tesla? So you can get a place with marble countertops? Like, what is it? Like, the idea, and I don't have children. So the idea of building generational wealth when there is no one to leave it to, well, who are you doing that for?
Right.
So it's I don't know, man. I've just been a guy I've always asked those questions about, and absolutely, like, I have no other choice because I'm like ADD. I'm all over the place. I'm not somebody who's like can hyper focus on one thing. Like Mr. Beast is that way because he's autistic, and they literally will fixate on something that interests them and perfect it and become obsessed with it. But this idea that like we reward that in culture as if it is somehow noble to be obsessive about something that like I would really be interested in Mr. Beast if he was like, I felt compelled to make content about this and it just so happened to succeed, versus somebody who was like, I was hell-bent on figuring out how to make this succeed, and then this is the content that I made.
Yeah.
And just right off rip, I'm just not even interested in what you have to say because I know that you just did it to win.
Yeah.
Just like when Andrew Schultz made that video shitting on Kanye and then signed an overall deal with CAA the next day. Motherfucker, you're doing it to win. That's probably not even what you really think of the situation, but you're playing the game. And you're a guy who just made his bones by telling everybody you won't play the game.
Yeah.
So it's the biggest pull the rug out from under his supporters that I've ever seen. Somebody go, the streaming companies tried to tell me what jokes I could put in my special. So I say, go fuck yourself. I'm going to do it myself. And I bet I took my $2 million that they gave me and I bought it back and I bet on myself. And if you bet on me too, we can win this thing together. And he made $6 million and shit on Kanye and ran up and signed an overall deal with CAA. It's like,
Who's
that's
CAA?
the biggest CAA creative artist agency.
Oh, it's an agency.
The Hollywood agency. Yeah.
Okay. And so
which is also the Hollywood agency that dropped Kanye. So it's like you literally told the people you were for the people, took their fucking money and sold out to the man. And you literally were willing to sling arrows at Jesus to fucking do it. Like, it's the most grotesque thing I've ever seen from somebody I respected. And that's all I'll say about it. And like, I've been a Schultz supporter and fan for a long time, even though I know he doesn't like me because he's friends with one of my nemesis, Van Lathan, who's also a nemesis of Kanye, which we bonded over. But like, when I saw that happen and saw the way that was orchestrated, man, I was disgusted. And I was just like, I will die poor and never doing that before I ever do something like that to get rich. It's just not my vibe. It's just not. And that's the thing, is like, people get it, and this is what's so funny. So many people are like, you can't corrupt me, and then they like, beware of people with expensive tastes, right? Like, when you see people start to make a little money, and they start buying like Rolls Royces and eating steak and lobster for dinner every night, like, those people are going to sell you out because the lifestyle is valuable to them. Yeah. Like, if I had $400 million in the bank, I'm still having McDonald's for dinner. Fuck yeah. That's what I love about Trump. People are like, ew, he eats McDonald's. I go, that dude's a billionaire. And he's like, I love McDonald's. I love my Diet Coke. Yeah. Who wants Chick-fil-A? And it's like, that's a real motherfucker. That's a dude who doesn't care about the money.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. So true. So true.
So when you see people with expensive tastes, like, beware, because what they're like, if it's threatened that they could lose that, they're going to start selling shit out to keep it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what's interesting, is like, when you look at Kanye, like, think about this. And then I tell people this, like, you don't have to like me, you don't have to like Kanye, but the thing about what I just said is, like, pay attention. How does Kanye dress? Like,
very meager.
He's been doing these interviews in a fucking dirty ass Carhartt hoodie,
right,
with a Viper Room merch, hat on, jeans, and these dirty ass rain boots, which, by the way, what I saw him this morning was what he was wearing, like similar shit. He's not walking around with millions of dollars of jewelry on his body and $7,000 designer fucking shit rolling up in $200,000 cars. Like, that's not, he's a Jedi. He's a fucking Jedi on a holy war. And it, like, there's nothing cooler in my life than watching him from afar and believing that, and then getting to like see kind of inside the machine a little bit to realize, like, oh, that's real. That's not fake. That's not put on. Like, that's who that man genuinely is. And so you start to look at these people, and I started paying attention to it. And I started thinking, like, oh, all these guys who are like, I'm about free speech and I'm about ideology. Like, Tim Dillon is another one I look at and I go, I love Tim Dillon. I love what he says. But Tim Dillon drives a Rolls Royce, and Tim Dillon likes really expensive dinners. And when the industry starts going to Tim Dillon and going, you're doing all this on your own and you're making $400,000 a month on Patreon, but like, what if we gave you your own late night TV show and we paid you $5, $6, $7 million a year? And then, like, but we're going to tell you a little bit what you can say, and we're going to tell you you can do it your own way. We're just going to bring in a few consultants. That's how it starts, right?
Right.
We're just going to bring in a couple consultants so we can have a more diverse opinion, perspective, and then fast forward, and it's your fucking Trevor Noah on the Daily Show, and you're just spouting propaganda because you just started fucking Minka Kelly, and you want to buy a $27 million house in Hollywood, and you live in New York and work in New York. Yeah. Like, it's just amazing to me
how even these people like a Trevor Noah, that was another thing I got canceled for. I said, Trevor Noah's only lived in this country as a millionaire. I know more about what it's like to be black in America than Trevor Noah. And of course, Black Twitter came for me. They came for me on that one hard.
Is he even black?
What's that? Yeah, no, he's colored. If you don't know, South Africa, they called mixed people colored. Yeah. God. So and it's funny, and then he clapped back at me and he said, if saying the N-word on Twitter makes you more black than me, then you definitely win. And I was like, you know what's funny though is like, I bet if I said it in front of black people and you said it in front of black people, you doing it would make them more uncomfortable.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because like I mean, I'm coming from a place of like relatability, and you're coming from a place of technicality. You're technically black, but you spiritually don't understand shit about what it's like to live that way in this country. And I know South Africa has had its own problems, but America is its own beast. Mm-hmm. Race is an issue in this country more than it is everywhere else, because of our history and because of the way and honestly, people go, is America the most racist country in the world? I go, yeah, and that's a good thing. You know why? It's that way because we're around each other. And we're integrated together, and so when there's that confrontation of different cultures, there's gonna be clash and there's gonna be pushback. And the difference is segregation. People go, look at Australia. There's no mass shootings. We took the guns away and everything's fine. I go, everybody is white and upper middle class. Of course they don't need guns. What is there to discuss? All the people of color live in the fucking jungle, hours outside of civilization. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, don't use Australia as an example. You can't use the UK as an example. These places are severely segregated. They don't ever have to talk about race because they're too pussy to even confront it. They live in their different. That's just Los Angeles is that way. Everybody goes, oh, Los Angeles is a melting pot. I go, that's cool because everybody black and brown lives south of Highway 10, right? Like, you know, everybody up here is like, and they go, no, there's plenty of black people in Santa Monica and Venice. Go, oh yeah, black people who are trust fund kids who went to Stanford, people like Issa Rae and Amanda Seales who will go on TV all day and talk about the black experience. And again, it's a technicality, not a relatability of like, yeah, I know I grew up upper middle class and my family is friends with the Obamas and the Clintons, but technically I'm black. So I'm going to tell you what that's like. Like I had Bertrand Cooper on my podcast a while back and he wrote this great piece about the problem with the push for diversity and inclusion. And he went through all the lists of all the black showrunners and directors and everything in Hollywood and was like, all these people are socioeconomically in the 1%. So they went out and found black people who went to Stanford, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and they said, look, we have all this diversity now in film. And it's like, do you have diversity or do you have tokenism? Did you go out and find all the rich black people that will still push the same propaganda that your rich white people were doing? Because that's what it is. Like you're gonna go to see Wakanda Forever. We all were gonna go see the Wakanda Forever, but don't believe that that's somehow not a 1% experience coming. Like that is a 1%er's perspective experience on black America or black experience in the world. And it's like, if you really want diversity in the content, and there was a great article, I can't remember who wrote it, about the problem with like what the permeation of British actors and Australian actors in American culture or in film is not about culture or race. It's about a 1%er thing. So like the only people who are actors, like look at people like Florence Pugh or the Hemsworths, like those people aren't actors because they were the best actors. It's sort of like being a hockey player. Hockey's the most expensive sport. So the best hockey player is just the best player whose parents had the money for them to play the sport. Yeah. You understand what I mean? Yeah. And so the best actors and the best directors and the best writers are just the best of the people whose parents could afford to put them in all this expensive shit. Exactly. And so all the stories were being told, all the films, all the TV shows, it's still coming from the richest 1% of society because those are the only people doing that. So it's so interesting to me when people get into that whole space of like, you know, it's got to be like, we want to all black this. And it's like, is it really though? Or is it just black versions of the same shit we've had for 100 years?
Yeah. It's diversity of skin color, homogeneity of mindset. Absolutely. Steph Colonel said one of the winningest champions of all time. Don't you ever for a second get to thinking you're irreplaceable. Thank you, Steph.
That's true. We all are.
Yeah. Steph said, same companies who employ slave labor who want to label people like Ye anti-redacted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike and Jules, he said, can Denny explain the whole tweeting Gavin was arrested by FBI thing? People are still confused. Also, Red Bar is watching.
Yeah, of course. That's one of my biggest trolls. Yeah, no, people, it's funny. People are still mad about. Did you see that a few months ago when Gavin sort of faked his own arrest?
No, did he?
Yeah. Well, it's yes and no. Like, originally he did it in a sense where it was sort of like open to interpretation and he wanted to see what the media did with it.
Okay.
But then when it started to grow, we poured a little gas on it to make it go a little bigger and it fucking blew up. And then the other thing is it blew up and a lot of our fans were mad because they didn't think it was funny, because a lot of them have this persecution complex. Like if they subscribe to our website or they subscribe to like Owen Benjamin's website or InfoWars, that the government's going to come round them up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so they were pissed at Gavin for doing this. And it was literally just like, that's what I love about Gavin McInnes, is that he's like, he has this sort of like very 90s Mr. Show mindset about being an artist and a comic and a comedic mind, where he's just like, well, this will be fun, right? Like this will be funny and crazy to do. Like, let's do this. And everybody thinks like, you know, Owen Benjamin got mad about it and thought it was like this big grift, like we were trying to grift money. But, you know, he was going out of town for a while and had this idea of like, wouldn't it be funny if I just like made it look like I potentially got raided and arrested and swatted, like Tim Pool gets swatted all the time?
Yeah.
And he goes, wouldn't it be funny if I made it look like that? And then I just left town for a couple of weeks and then came back like nothing ever happened or whatever. And who knows where the bit would have gone if Owen didn't spoil it and tell on him. But the difference between Owen and I is like Owen as Gavin's friend, like texted him and was like, what's going on? And Gavin was like, this is a bit we're doing. And then Owen was like, well, I'm going to tell everybody because I don't think it's cool, which is gay. And as a comedian, that's a gay fucking thing to burn another guy's bit. And when I wasn't brought in on the front side of it. When Gavin did it, I texted him, was like, hey man, are you okay? Like, I'll jump on a plane. Like, I bought it too. And I was like, I'll jump on a plane and come to New York and do whatever battling we got to do. And he was like, dude, I'm in France. Like we're on vacation with the family. I just thought it'd be a funny way to leave town and do a bit. And I was like, and then my reaction wasn't, how dare you? My reaction was like, oh, cool. Can I help in any way? And he was like, yeah. He was like, this will be funny. Tweet this. And he literally like wrote word for word something for me to put out. I think he underestimated how quickly shit can catch fire on my Twitter feed because I don't know if it's because I'm verified. I could go back and pull it up, but I was like, it's not a bit. Gavin was against January 6th and he was against I can't remember what he sent me, but it was like Gavin's against January 6th. Oh, and he was against Charlottesville, and Proud Boys went anyway, and it was a setup, and now he's rotting in jail because he dared to question authority. Like it was this very hyperbolic thing that was like, and he might have been drunk when he sent it to me in all reality. So I don't know if any, but I was like, oh, this is gonna fucking get him going. So let me post this. Yeah. And then we both realized like, oh shit, we are selling tickets to a tour and we do have a show in a week and a half. So like, did we just burn ourselves selling our tickets? And like, is everybody kind of cancel their orders? So then I was like, fuck, now I got to be like, hold on a minute. Maybe it's not that. So we're just like a bunch of idiots trying to do a bit and like figuring things out as we go. And so then I was like, no, Anthony and I will get him out of jail and we'll make sure he's in Las Vegas September 10th for the show. Please still buy tickets without trying to spoil the bit. And then Owen and everybody else was like, this is a grift. They set this whole thing up to sell tickets to the tour. And it's like, no, it's just a fucking prank bit that got out of control. It's not a grift. And by the way, if it was, it didn't work because we inevitably sold less tickets. He lost a lot of fans by doing it. But I love anybody who's willing to do something interesting and not give a fuck about the money. Who's willing to be like, I'll lose $10,000 to fucking do this and see what happens. Like, I'd rather rock with people like that than people that are like self-righteous. you know, and that's definitely a guy like Owen Benjamin. Like, he's so self-righteous. Like, I'm the only one who's been canceled. I've been deplatformed from everything. And it's like, well, yeah, because you go out of your way to be deplatformed. You literally go to a new platform. Like, you went to Rockfin and was like, what are the rules? And like, just don't be anti-Semitic. Just don't say shit about the Jews. And he literally was like, so anyway, the Jews, they run everything. They're killing everyone. It was just like, he literally will run directly into the sun and be like, what a martyr I am. Like, he's, and so that dude's raised money for his own causes that are questionable, that his own audience has been like, what are you doing? So like, that's what I think is, I know you're a big proponent of the grifties, but it's like, they're
creator of the grifties.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's yours?
Yeah.
That's you guys. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I was on there for a little bit, but I always just check in.
Yeah. We created that. Yeah. That's
my,
that's my brainchild. And
yeah, it says at the top, Hotep's been told you. How have I never seen that? You know what it is? I go to the fucking site, dude, and I just go right to the list every time.
Yeah.
Because I'm always looking like who's up in the grifties. But yeah, it's like that word gets thrown around a lot, and there are a lot of them for sure.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, you know, people who are willing to lose money to do cool shit. It's hard to call them grifters, right?
Absolutely. Well, we believe there's a good side and a bad side to the grift. So it's kind of like the Jedi. It's kind of like the Force, right? You can be Jedi or the Sith, but either way, we're all kind of got our own little grift.
Wow, you're 40. You're 47th yourself on your own list.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, that's 40, not bad.
Yeah, 47th. Uncle Hotep's 54th. I think it's weird.
As long as I'm kicking his ass.
I like that Eric Stein is 56.
Is he?
Yeah, that feels low. Crowder, he's down. Yeah, I have so many friends on this list.
Yeah, is Owen Benjamin on there? I think Owen Benjamin's on there, right?
He might be. Gavin is 77. My buddy Dick Masterson is 75.
Mm-hmm.
Tariq Nasheed, he's my favorite. He's definitely, if you were to ask me who's a grifter, I'd be like, that dude for sure. Vito, yeah, Anomaly, yeah. So all the IDW and sort of like right-leaning people are on here. Patton Oswalt at 110 is an injustice. Oh, I'm on here too. Holy shit, 122. I better step it up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I'll just start leaking random photos of what I'm working on, and people will. I'm sure I will send the list very quickly.
Classic. Shout out to our team. Adam Rezick helped put this app together. Taylor is the one that made the grifties a real thing. I said it jokingly on a show, and then he was a listener at the time. He was like, "Yeah, I'm a videographer. You know, we can actually make that real." And we were like, "You can do an award show real?" He's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Fuck it." So we're working on the 3rd annual right now.
And you're gonna do like a live award show for it?
We were thinking about that. We just
you got to do it. You got to do it. It would be the most hilarious troll of award shows. You get a celebrity host.
Yeah, we tried to do it with Tim Pool, but we couldn't get enough sponsor money. So maybe next year. We'll do a live one. Usually we do a virtual. We just shoot it and pre-record it and then put it on the internet. And it's pretty cool. That's the one that you see on the site now. But we were thinking about selling tickets to a live show. We just couldn't get enough sponsor money. I mean, the venue was, how much was the venue? Well, the videography was $30,000.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
For live streaming production or just to film it?
Just to film it.
Wow.
They kind of just threw live streaming in there because it's just a feed. But yeah, to have the multiple cameras going and really do it at high quality was $30,000 for the video, and I think the venue was about another $10,000. And then you got to add in talent, right?
Yeah.
And then the cost of talent to come in. And then, so I did the ticket sales, and it was about 60,000 in revenue on ticket sales. So there's some potential to make some money there. And that was based upon meager ticket sales. That wasn't even based upon packing out 1,000-room joint, So I think next year,
you could do it. You could do it at the same place that they do the Golden Globes in the what is that? The Hilton Ballroom.
Okay.
You could probably rent that out. What's that? I don't know, but I'm saying you could probably rent that out and do it and make it look exactly like the Golden Globes. Yeah. But what's interesting is I don't think those people get paid to appear on those shows. Generally what happens is
the sponsors will put together these bags. And then the reason these people do it is they go do these because the sponsors will give them like $20,000 of free products.
Yes.
And so that's really the move, is like your sponsorship is really about getting people to put stuff in the bags to get the talent. It's like this weird like pyramid scheme of award shows. I only know this because my girl works award shows constantly, and she's a talent handler. And she's like, the fucking shit that's in some of these bags for like the Oscars or the Grammys or whatever would blow your mind.
Really?
Like, yeah, there's this, what was the show? It was, there's like a comedy show where maybe, I'm not in the chat, but if maybe somebody in the chat knows this, there was a comedy show where these people like meet up with, it's like Malcolm McDowell or somebody, and or no, it's it was The Sopranos. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm forgetting this. There was an episode of The Sopranos where Christopher is trying to get Sir Ben Kingsley to do his movie, and he goes to this award show that Ben Kingsley is at, and Ben Kingsley is just walking around the booths to get the grab bag shit, like the giveaway stuff, and it's literally like $20,000 watch, you know, like a $50,000 thing for this. And Christopher's just like, and he's just like, oh, my nephew would like one of these. I'll take one and give it to him. And Christopher's just like, yo, this is all this expensive shit. You don't even care. You don't even care. So then eventually Christopher, he like, I can't remember who it was. It's like Lauren Bacall or some old actress. He just like beats the shit out of her in the parking lot and takes the fucking bag. And it's like this hilarious, but he cares so much about not being included in that Hollywood world of like grab bags.
Yeah.
And that's literally like, that's what people go, how do these rich people stay rich? It's like, yeah, because once they become influential, they no longer pay for anything.
Yeah, you don't pay for anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that's the move, is like you get the sponsors to fill the bags, and then the bags bring out the celebrities or whatever. And all the people that are on this would probably be so stoked to just be there and be a part of it. That it would be, I think it would be a real fun thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna spend next year raising the money, and then we'll do the 4th annual in person.
Yeah.
We were supposed to do it with Tim Pool, but it just didn't work out. One of the sponsors didn't want to do it. I think they had some other engagements.
Well, I do a lot of, so I do the whole production. I have a production company, and I do the whole live event production side of our tour with Gavin and Anthony. So if you need any help or want any help with any of that, I'd be happy to, because I do mean negotiation when it comes to like venues and stuff like that. Like in most cases, we don't pay any guaranteed money.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because of the amount of money that we do on a bar. So like for live shows, I push really, really, really hard on guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'd rather go, I'm good at crunching the numbers. So like I'll look at a venue and they'll go like, we have a $25,000 bar minimum.
Yeah.
For the night. And that usually scares people away, because they think, oh my God, I have to spend $25,000 to rent this venue. And it's like, no. If this is New York and the average drink price is $16 and you have 500 people at a show and they're going to drink about 1.5 drinks per person, that's how much money the bar is going to make.
Right.
So a lot of times they'll give you these big bar guarantees, and then because they want you to take the buy. So what they'll do is they'll go, well, you can do a buyout bar guarantee for $25,000, or we can do a bar guarantee of $5,000 and you pay us $7,500 to rent the venue. And most people go, oh, good, because that's only $12,500. I don't want to have to spend $25,000. And then what you realize is the bar's still going to make that $25,000, and they're going to make your $7,500. And so people, out of fear and their inability to do the math and really speculate, like forecasting is such a big part of business. And I got really good at it working at Crocs and Sean John and all these other places, building pro formas and forecasting sales. But it's literally just about knowing your business. And so if you go, I'll get on with the venue and I'll go, what's your average drink price? What's your average ticket? What's the length of the show? And I'll just start to crunch the numbers and go, okay, if we're going to have 200 guests and the average spend is this, what are they going to spend at the bar? 20,000, 15,000. All right. So conservatively, I'll do a $10,000 bar guarantee. but I won't do more than that. And so, and then that's where the negotiation takes place. So I negotiate like we probably make more money on our shows than most people because I negotiate really, really hard on stuff like that.
So what about the camera side of things? I know when we talking about doing this, we had like 5 cameras, you know, one capturing the audience, one on stage, one here, one, you know, Taylor handles all of that. So you say that's what you do? You do the video production?
No, it's mostly just like, it's more like stage production, but like,
okay.
I mean, that's inevitably what I hope to transition it into. And I've got some experience with that. Like, quite frankly, if I were tasked with producing an event like that, I just have a director of photography I would hire who would be able to tell me, here's what we need, here's what it would cost. But he's like, his vision and ability to kind of throw that stuff together on paper is really, really solid. So like, if I ever got to the point with my company where I'm like I want to do a special next year, and it's probably going to cost me between 25 and 50,000. And then when I do that, he's going to be the guy I tasked to like put the whole thing together and help me create the Scott guy I worked with on Ginormous Food. Yeah.
Okay, got you. Yeah, that's the same thing with my guy, right? Like he's that guy, you know, head of videography who knows that we need a $30,000 budget, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I would just go, hey, he'd be like, what do you want? What kind of coverage? And I go, okay, I want like 1 jib shot and I want 2 of these. And then audio wise, and he would literally be able to go, yeah, it's going to cost you rough. And I have another friend locally who works for Supply House. So he can always give me a good idea of like, yeah, if you're going to do this, it's probably going to, in terms of equipment rental and stuff, it's probably going to cost you X amount of money. But what's interesting is I started looking at like buying some material instead of renting it. So like a good example is like for me to do it union and have like a union crane operator to do an over the audience, like uptight jib shot over my stand-up special, like that operation alone costs like 25 grand, but I can buy a fucking crane. I can buy the crane for 6. So it's like, wait a minute. Yeah. Why would I rent one for 10 when I can own one for 6 or 7? Yeah. And then I got to pay like I still have to pay the permitting and the insurance on it.
Right. Right.
Because obviously the liability is what happens if a fucking RE Alexa or a Red Dragon camera build falls from the crane onto somebody in the audience. That's why they push like you need a union certified operator for that. And that's where like production budgets in LA get so gross, where they're just like, yeah, it's 60,000 to have a thing go like this, and you just go like, yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, because you got to cover your ass. We're gonna put you in touch with my producer, and we're gonna figure this thing out with the Grifties. Maybe we could happen this year. Shout out to
the
David
idea
Zantara.
of it being like what was the shitty award show that they used to do?
What? MTV?
It was like the Oscars, but no, it was like the Oscars, but it was the opposite. And like Tom Green has won the most or something like that.
Not an MTV?
No, it was.
Not the Spaceman?
No, there was it's not Golden Raspberry. Maybe it's a Golden Raspberry, something else, but there's like an award. Somebody I'm sure in your chat knows what it's called.
Chat, help us out.
Shittiest film awards. What were they called? The Golden, maybe. Oh, the Razzies. Oh yeah, that's short for Golden Raspberry Award.
The Razzies. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So it's like they used to do the Razzies like with the same big production of the Oscars at times, and it would just be like shitting on people. And if you remember, like none of the actors would actually show up to accept their Razzies, and I think maybe Tom Green was the only person to ever show up and like accept the award for worst actor and like give a speech.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's it. Yeah,
that's exactly what we're going for.
Yeah, so that's when you were talking about wanting to do it as a live thing, I was like, oh, this could be like the new version of the Razzies.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we're gonna put that together. David Zantara, thank you. Claire Stanhope, thank you. Demi, thank you. Shout out to people not grifting and supporting the channel. We appreciate you. Josh, man, fucking amazing conversation, bro. Amazing. Really just exceeded my expectations, you know, and usually I go into these things with no expectations, but just the fact that I have a new business idea just paid for this whole entire situation 10 times over.
That's good, man. I'm happy. I'm glad something good came out of it, because boy, do I do plenty of them where we're just fucking talking about nonsense.
Hey, Rumble, if I'm not verified, it's like, nah. Got me like looking like a peasant over there on Rumble, man. I ain't got no blue check or nothing. Y'all ain't send me no email. Y'all ain't welcome me. Y'all ain't send me a gift bag.
It's funny, like just sort of like being a little privy to some of these conversations and how many people are weighing in and how many people have opinions about stuff and how many people are like, what if you do this? Or what if you do that? Or what if you do this? I can understand where you could get to a place where you're just sitting in front of a camera being like, I made the whole fucking leather jogging short. I made the whole, like, y'all never had no fashion before me. I could see where a man would get pushed into just just snapping and being like, y'all didn't know no fashion, but I reinvented music. Like, just, I could understand the frustration of literally listening to fucking Suits all day going like, you know what you should do? You know what you should do? You know what you need to do? You know what you're doing wrong? You know what you need to do? Like, what's good about you? What we like about you? What the people resonate about with you? Just telling you who you are and what you're about and why you have value all day long. And I'd be like, I understand why you would sit in an interview and be like, Walt Disney,
Yeah,
Steve Jobs. Like, I get how it would just push you into that hyperbolic state of being like, I'm tired of fucking telling everybody who I am. Like, right. I'm tired of having to give my bona fides every time I sit down with people.
Put some
like,
respect on my name.
It really is like that of just, but it's like every day of your life of like, you know, just constantly fighting to be like, how much do I have to do to just walk in a room and be listened to?
Yeah.
Like, you would just think that somebody with that kind of track record would be able to walk into any room and people would just go, you have the floor. You tell us what you want. You tell us your vision and we'll work to make it a reality. And people don't do that. Like, all those points on the board of everything the man has ever done in his life, and he walks into a room and everybody goes, we have this is all done for you. We have a whole plan. We're going to tell you exactly who you are and what you're going to do and how we're all going to get rich together. And if you're somebody who doesn't care about getting rich together, how much would that whole process frustrate you from start to finish? To where you would be like, when are we gonna fucking fix all these Jews in where you would just be like, motherfucker. Like, yeah, I get it, dude. I get it on a level of just like, even just getting a little peek behind the curtain. I'm just like, yo, if that were me, I might have fucking shot somebody by now. Like, like, I just like the patience that you have to be that person and experience all those things is something that nobody gives the man credit for.
Yeah, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Josh Denny. This interview will be up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc., etc. The audio link is in the description box below, so you can listen to all the audio versions of my interviews. I am Hotep Jesus. Until the next time, I'll see y'all.